Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh.
The greatest scam in history.
Let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Alright, you ungovernable misfits. I'm your host, Max. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is useless, worthless, and doomed to fail. But what if everyone's wrong? What if it's the system that is doomed to fail? Join me as I speak to some of the brightest people in the space and slither to the deepest, darkest depths of the Bitcoin rabbit hole.
Warning, today's episode is something completely different. I caught up with a mate I haven't seen for a long time. He was actually on this show in the very early days, and we decided to record. We talked a lot of conspiracy theories, we hit the bong hard, and if you are easily offended or you're going to cry and bitch and moan that we're saying that climate change might be a scam, that Klaus Schwab probably fucks kids and drink their blood, and all the other weird shit that we talk about in this episode, then turn it off and go away. Come back next week when we're talking about Bitcoin. We don't talk a lot about Bitcoin in this episode, but we do cover it. We mainly talk about conspiracy theories, COVID, climate change, interdimensional being, space, all the typical sort of stuff you're going to talk about when you're high as fuck. So once again, if you are here just to listen to Bitcoin content, you're probably best just to tune in next week. Also, our audio isn't brilliant. I was just at a mate's house. We recorded with what we had. I've done the best I can with the post-production, but you know, it's not up to my usual high standards. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, let me know. You know, I love recording this sort of stuff. Well, I love talking about this sort of stuff. I don't normally record it because this is a Bitcoin podcast, but I know there's a lot of crossover with the conspiracy stuff. So if you like it, let me know. If you hate it, tough shit, mate. Kerem did send me a long voice note the next day saying, oh fucking hell, the climate change stuff, I didn't really explain all that well, I could have said this, I could have said that, blah blah blah. He's done a lot of research into this, far more than I have. Yeah, he wanted me to let you know all these extra things, but I just can't be arsed. So we covered a lot of it here, and if you like it, let me know and I'll get him back on and we can go a little bit deeper and maybe when we're not so high. Alright, I hope you enjoy it. Before we dive in, I just want to say a brief thank you to my sponsors. First up, we have my new sponsor. The man, the myth, the legend, Black Coffee is behind this. He's a good friend of mine and he's been on the show multiple times. He has started SX6.store where he's selling marine grade 316L stainless steel plates. These are used to back up your seed words and passphrases. If you're building a seed signer after listening to this show and you want to find some real good quality backup plates, then look no further. Go to sx6.store and use my shill code, which is... Fuck, I keep forgetting this. Can't remember. Right, just looked it up. Shill code is MAXBBB to get 10% off your first order. Next up is Foundation Devices. Foundation make ultra premium signing devices. They are fucking beautiful. The quality really is unmatched and they have an incredible team. If you haven't checked them out already, go to foundationdevices.com. You can use my shill code BIT. If you're looking for a signing device that is fully open source and beautifully made, then look no further. And trust me, you do want something that is fully open source. You do not want to be trusting your sats with code that you cannot see and that is not out in the open. Go to foundationdevices.com and you can reach out and ask me if you have any questions and trade-offs with this product or anything else. And finally, Fast Bitcoins. A huge thank you to Fast Bitcoins for supporting this show despite me constantly bashing them, shitting on them from a great height and telling everyone not to use KYC services. So, if you are listening to the show and you think, fuck off Max, I don't care, I'm going to use KYC service, then please make sure that you go to the best team out there. A team that's going to do everything that they can to keep you safe. You're still going to be giving over all your details, you still are trusting a company, and you might end up on a list. But you are less likely to have issues if you go to a quality outfit, and I have a lot of trust and respect for these guys. So if you are going to stack in a KYC fashion, then look no further, go to fastbitcoins.com. And if you have any questions about the trade-offs of KYC versus non-KYC, and I haven't bashed you over the head hard enough about this, then you can reach out to me personally. I'll be open and honest about all the trade-offs, and yeah, I can pass you their way if you decide to do that. fastbitcoins.com. Final message is to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been sharing the show with friends and family. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot and it really helps the show in the rankings. And everyone who's been sending fountain boosts. I still cannot respond to you. I can't respond or see the messages or do anything in fountain. I am in contact with Oscar Merry to try and fix this, so hopefully this will get sorted soon, but I really appreciate it. I do see the sats rolling in and it means a lot. Right, on with the show. Okay.
Should we do it like a...
Yeah, okay, so...
3, 2, 1. All right. That'll sync them up at the beginning.
Do you have the lights down?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You're a weirdo with your lights.
I am. I went on Reddit recently. I do like a bit of Reddit. I haven't got any lamps.
Well,
yeah, fine.
Even just that.
The who has the big light on, and it's like obviously the majority of people are talking about like, oh yeah, lamps, like cool lighting. But there's this small hardcore of people that are like, I like the big light. Yeah. But we are in the minority. We know
like
it.
The really fake, really bright, horrible shit like you'd have in an office. I hate it. No,
I always like an incandescent bulb. When they changed over to the like energy saving, I fucking hated those.
Yeah.
I like the tungsten filament, the classic
where it's
light bulb.
Actually warm. It's like a warm.
Yeah, when it blows and you try to touch it and you like burn your fingers. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like low light. I either like sunlight or low light.
Yeah. I
don't like any sort of fake shit. Even when I'm working in the office, this sort of lighting.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
I don't get headaches from light. I get it from sound. So that was the thing is like, you know, the adverts, they kill me. Too much noise, too much like mixed noise. That's when I get annoyed. But yeah, like I can have the bright light on pretty much all day and not really give a shit.
Fair enough. Yeah. So we're going to annoy some people?
Well, we can play a game.
Okay.
Like, how much do you know about random conspiracy theories?
Okay, yeah, that's a good game.
That's a good game because then it's for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah,
and then
you're not saying it.
You're not actually saying you ascribe to any ideas. You're just kind of going, do you know about these ones? So
I know a bit. The thing is, I never go down the rabbit hole that much because it's a lot of like the Bitcoin world. It crosses over with obviously the conspiracy stuff. And then it's like, I know how sad I am and how much time I need to spend on something if I can start going into it. I don't have the fucking time. So COVID, I went hard in that one.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, and the money stuff obviously go hard, but the rest of it, I'm like, I sort of get it, but it's so much time. I know you've done a lot of time in a couple of these rabbit holes.
Yeah. I do feel like I've been put, bizarrely, the social media algorithm pushes you to what you're going to engage with. So recently, my feed is just full of cocks. Recently, my shit has been I'm pretty sure I'm on a government watch list because it's like the Killdozer, the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, like, you love, here's your hero. It's like, hang on. And then you start reading about it and you're like, oh shit, yeah, maybe the Unabomber did have a point. Like, the mail bombs were a bit much. I'm just going to go on record and say that.
Probably.
But his manifesto, like, fucking...
All I know on this one, didn't he predict a lot of the, like, technical shit? And he was, like, saying, we need to stop it now. Wasn't that the thing? I've never really looked into it.
Oh, mate. This is one of the crazy ones, right? So, because he died very recently, the Unabomber.
Okay.
Like, literally a week or so ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, very, like, in the zeitgeist. He was a mathematics professor at, like, some proper famous university college in the US.
Right.
He was a victim of the MK Ultra mind control experiment.
Okay.
So they dosed him up with LSD.
Why did you say victim? Inverted commas.
Well, I didn't want to say participant, but like... Like, so this is like, technically this isn't a conspiracy theory, this is conspiracy fact. You can go on to, if you go onto the Unabomber's Wikipedia page, you will see he was in the trial, the MK Ultra trial, in redacted government CIA documents. Is proven that there's no question that the CIA went out, dosed people up with drugs, particularly LSD, in an attempt to control their minds.
With them knowing or without them knowing?
Most cases, well, I think of both. I think they did all kinds of stuff because they definitely did things without people knowing, because there was Operation Midnight Climax, which is
That's brilliant. This has to be to do with prostitutes.
Fucking, you know it. You nailed it. Yeah, so they would go to whorehouses.
Brilliant.
And then the CIA got the prostitutes to dose the Johns, the punters, with LSD. Yeah. And so they'd be sitting there through a glass mirror, like two-way mirror, watching them.
That's weird.
Yeah, like not watching them have sex, but like watching their reaction to the LSD. Because obviously, who's going to go home and tell your missus, like, oh no, but I went to this whorehouse and then they gave me some acid. Like, it was great.
You did what? No, ignore that bit.
Yeah. So, because literally you're going to cover it up. So they've got a perfect free victim who they can do whatever they want to.
Unless you're single, and then who gives a fuck?
Well, yeah. I mean, but I guess prostitution was illegal.
People probably still wouldn't just like...
Yeah.
Like, Mum, Dad.
Yeah. The CIA. No one's going to believe you anyway. So, they just freely did it. So
that must be fucking weird. You go in and you're like, I'm horny and I can't get any birds. So I'm going to go in and go into the whorehouse. Right, okay, I'm sat here. And then you're suddenly, things start changing pretty quickly.
You say suddenly, apparently, not that I've had any experience, but LSD, that does take about an hour to 45 minutes to kick in. Like, I had this mate, Dangerous Dave, I won't say his family name.
His mate.
And he came up in the middle of Lidl's, like literally at the queue, but he'd only taken a half, so he wasn't like full blown, but you know, like it was that moment, just like when you feel it, like, and you're looking around like, oh shit, and you've got to then finish the shopping. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I've never taken it, another view, but what is that feeling like?
It's one of those things that's very dose dependent. So, as I say, like if you take a half, you are still pretty compass. Like what's going on is inside your head. It's very much like cannabis high without perhaps the body's sedative effects.
Okay.
So you don't feel mongy, but you definitely feel a bit weird. You'll appreciate colours and sounds more, but you're not seeing shit. Okay, so we're talking up to about 100 micrograms-ish, 75 to 100 micrograms, apparently. You'll definitely know you're on it, but if you smoke like a strong joint, you won't be able to tell the difference.
Right.
Like the weed would overpower it. But you would, if you just took it half tab on its own, take a whole tab, like 200 micrograms, then like patterns, the wall just starts to like have like wavy patterns in it. You ever see that illusion where you look at the spinning wheel online and then you look at your hand and it looks like it's growing? Everything looks like that.
I don't think I'd like that. I'd be like, fuck,
it's certainly an experience, but there's a nice element to it as well. Like we've got a family friend who recently is going through a bit of a difficult time. I don't want to go into his personal circumstances, but he has to look after someone a lot. And then recently, This dude literally was grabbing drugs out of the box, and the person was like, look, you can have one of these, just have one of those. Yeah. And used it as a day. He had a day to himself, and he just took the acid and was out in the countryside.
Yeah.
And just went for a long walk, and he said he went to talking to plants and trees and just looking at the sun, and just like, there is something like reset-y, refreshing about it.
Okay.
It's nice. Like I say, like a half tab.
It's probably where you are. If you're like out in nature, it's probably nice.
Oh,
if you're like in a shopping centre, it's probably fucking horrendous.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that would be fun.
Yeah. Like I say, coming up in Lidl, like it's not where you want to be, really. And like, I'll tell you another story about that guy Dave. He had some edibles, and like they were quite all right, but he had these last three.
Right.
So he's gone to a conference. It's like this corporate conference, right? And then he's finished the conference, grabbed a load of cookies out of the bowl, stuffed them in his bag, and got on the train. Sitting on the train, and he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll take them edibles. So he munches the last three edibles. And within like 5 minutes, he's nodded off. Well, not because of the edibles, obviously, they take a while to kick in, but he's just tired. It's been a long day, right? So he nods off and wakes up on the train back from Birmingham. It's like 45 minutes later, and obviously they're starting to kick in. So he wakes up and he's like, fuck. Oh, he's up in them cookies. So he starts munching on the cookies. And then, like, literally, the train announcement just goes, we're shortly arriving to London Euston. And he's like, fuck. So he grabs all his shit, gets ready, and then just like, puts headphones in, and then you've got to walk through London Euston Station where there's thousands of people at like peak time, like 5 o'clock.
Like that even sober.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just getting on the phone and just like, the only way to get through this is just to text your friend. Like, just texting them random messages. You're on the underground. No one's getting the messages. It's just like, yeah, this is okay. No one notices I'm just looking at my phone. But like, so stressful to just wake up in London in a busy like train station, high as balls, and just be like, right, now I've got to go on the underground. Yeah. Not his best decision.
So that's what these guys were experiencing.
Well, I mean,
they're going for a blowjob.
Yeah, I like how you brought it back. I was well off on that tangent then. But yeah, so the Operation Midnight Climax guys, I mean, the thing is, if you dose someone with enough acid, it gets to DMT style levels.
Oh, right, okay.
So you go so far that you can't really see reality, and you get these things called ego death.
Right.
Which I have seen. I've seen people forget who they are and not really understand what's going on.
As in short term, they forget.
Yeah.
Then they come back to...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, there are stories of people that have abused acid and like...
just don't come back.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I know someone who smoked weed and never came back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think if you have a predisposition to schizophrenia, it just opens that door and throws you down there a lot quicker. And that's the one thing, like, I'm a big advocate for weed, but like, you've got to be aware that, if you can smoke weed, you're fine.
Yeah.
But there are some people who cannot. That is an awkward truth that a lot of smokers don't like to be aware of. But yeah, if weed's going to push you towards it, acid's going to throw you off the cliff. Bringing it back to the tangent, so Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was someone that MK Ultra was this vast experiment with LSD and mind control. Yeah. And there's a book by a fella, it's a book called Chaos, and it suggests that there's a lot of evidence that, what's his name? Charles Manson.
Right.
He was part of that experiment. And there was a particular CIA psychologist called Jolly West who visited Manson. Jolly West, bizarrely, also was somehow involved in the Kennedy assassination.
Okay.
Because the guy who killed Kennedy, the lone assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was then killed by Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby, by all accounts, was absolutely fine and sane. And then Jolly West, who had a lot of interactions with Charles Manson, part of MK Ultra, CIA psychologist, goes to visit Jack Ruby in jail, comes out, and he's absolutely insane. He calls him clinically insane. And since after that meeting, everyone's like, he's insane.
Right.
Dosed him up with like a gram of LSD or something.
Well, how did he kill?
Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy. Jack Ruby ran out and shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Okay.
They were like prisoner transport or something. And I'm talking a little bit out of school here, but I think Jack Ruby he owed some mobsters some money.
Okay.
He was definitely into some kind of, he owed people something.
So the conspiracy theorist in me would say they fucked up. This Lee Harvey Oswald somehow would give information that maybe would prove that he wasn't the sole killer or whatever. Like, he had some information, so they were like, this guy needs to go.
Well, I mean, maybe that, who the fuck knows with all these, like, do you know what I think it is? I don't think they even think it through.
Do you reckon?
I don't think they think it through.
And they're just down the pub, just like, shit,
what do we do now? We just do one thing, like, let's kill the president. Yeah, bang. Like, and then, like, now what do we do? Well, we got to kill that guy. Oh, cool. And then what do we do with the next guy? Just dose him up with acid.
MK Ultra was CIA.
Yeah, and so Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was definitely someone that was involved in the mind control experiments of MK Ultra. And maybe he just saw the truth of it. You know, it opened up his eyes. But it's bizarre, like the excerpts from his manifesto are like, you know, the liberals in the universities are driving us down a path of amoral. You know, they don't recognise or understand the hard-working principles of humanity and pushing us in a direction that's not good. And like, especially when you see what's going on now in the social sciences after the grievance affair, you know, where they made up all those fake papers.
I don't know about that.
Oh, that's a big one. This is quite recent. People wanted to expose how social science, and I'm using the little finger commas here.
Yeah.
Because social, like, I'm a hard scientist. Let's be straight up.
You're not hard.
I'm well hard, mate. You even said I was hard when I turned up at your house with, like, bits hanging out of my ankle. You're like, you're pretty fucking hard. And like,
I could see
I suppose I am, actually, yeah.
Okay, you're a scientist. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but a hard scientist, chemistry and physics are hard things where it's measurements. You have to show cause and effect. You have to go, if this changes, that changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to be able to measure and prove patterns, right? So, like, a classic example, Galileo's experiment, do heavier things fall fast, right? And he proved that they don't.
They don't, yeah.
Everything falls at the same speed, right? Nice, simple experiment. Now, if you want to do a psychological experiment, like, does porn make you less good at keeping relationships? That's almost impossible to prove because people are different.
Everyone's different. The porn they're watching is different. Yeah. There's too many variables that you can't.
Absolutely. Complex systems. And then people are different because you've got like nature and nurture. You've got a genetic predisposition, but you've also got your experience, your upbringing, So like, you're always going to have outliers. You're going to have people that don't react and people do react. So it's psychological stuff is not an exact science. So calling it a science is bullshit. But then social science is not even psychological. It's like, well, it's where you get gender theory, race theory, all this kind of bollocks.
It's annoying.
It is annoying.
I'm not a scientist, but it annoys me.
They're not scientists.
No. Well, what I'm saying is I'm not like a hard scientist where I'm actually going around. Yeah, like I'm interested in money and like some other things where it's like not science, but I like to measure things and stuff. But I'm not a scientist, and it annoys the fuck out of me because I'm like, this is just dumb. This is like, this study showed. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
So they were a group of academics, including some British people, wanted to prove that the social sciences were corrupted by liberal ideas and political ideas and let's be honest, left-wing Marxist, communist, socialist ideas. Yeah. So they published some studies. Oh, there's a fox out there.
Oh, yeah. They're actually fucking cool, aren't they?
Yeah, there's loads of them around here. They drive around that main road at night and you'll see a load of them just like sleeping on the road.
It almost looks like a big cat. That's quite a big one, actually.
Yeah, I think of them as like homeless dogs.
Yeah, quite nice. Are they run by MK Ultra?
Well, foxes?
Yeah.
No.
But the birds are monitoring
Foxes are ungovernable. You can't govern foxes.
That's true, actually.
Like, you put them, the food in those, like, waste bins for the food recycling thing. Yeah. Those that unlock them and take the bag out.
They are ungovernable.
Yeah, they are. I like a fox. It's a good symbol. Right. So we're on, at the moment, the grievance study. So they wanted to prove that social sciences had become basically all about pushing an agenda. Uh-huh. So they published a load of fake studies, right?
On purpose?
On purpose, to see if they would get into the social sciences magazines to prove that these guys aren't actually legit. They're just pushing an agenda. There was a couple of them. So there was one about the behaviour of dogs in dog parks reinforces rape culture. So
Brilliant.
The premise of the study is that they looked at the anuses of like 1,000 dogs, right? And they went round these parks and looked at dog anuses. Like that in itself was ridiculous, but they drew the conclusion that somehow the behaviour of the owners and the humping of the dogs was linked to homophobia and rape culture. Fuck knows. It's all made up.
Yeah.
But that was published, right? Got into a social sciences magazine, like quite a high level one.
Yeah.
My favourite one is when they just took excerpts of Mein Kampf, which is a book written by Adolf Hitler. Right? So they took the excerpt of Mein Kampf. All they did was replace the word Jew with white
male.
Exactly.
White cis male.
White cis male, yeah.
Fuck those guys.
And that got an award.
That's brilliant.
It's fucking brilliant.
So who did this?
Oh, I'd have to look up their names. It's something like I want to say Penrose, but it's not Roger Penrose because he's a mathematician, but it's someone like that. Something Rose or Penn, something like that. Yeah. But if you look up the grievance studies, or the grievance affair is, I think, the name of the Wikipedia page.
Right.
It's one of those ones that has been suppressed.
Okay.
Like, it's been they've been on Rogan, the people that did it have been on Rogan and talked about it. But it's one that obviously the social science community are super embarrassed about it because they published about 6 or 7 papers. Yeah. Oh, my favourite one, fat bodybuilding. That bodybuilding should include a category of fat people because fat people have worked hard at building a larger body.
To be fair, bought and paid for. That's what they say. Bought and
paid for. You've definitely seen Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, and they don't fucking pay for it, half of them.
I mean, it's the cheapest shit though, isn't it? You're not paying a lot. Like, have you ever noticed that? You go to the food aisle and then the healthy shit's more expensive.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so MK Ultra.
So, yeah, the reason we went on to the grievance studies was that Ted Kaczynski had suggested that the liberals, not just liberals, but these ultra-extreme left-wing socialist Marxists who believe in, race theory, gender theory, all this kind of stuff that we're now seeing permeating the landscape and the zeitgeist.
Especially universities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gotten crazy now to the point where archaeologists don't want to gender some bones that they dug up in case...
Fuck off!
Are you serious? You've not heard this?
No.
So literally, if you're in Sweden and you dig up some bones and you go, oh, this is a very strong Viking warrior. We don't know that this Viking identified... I mean, we fuck it... do you want to know something I've learned recently about Vikings, right?
Go on.
This is bizarre. It's only gay if you take it in the arse.
Yeah, everyone knows that. Did you know that?
I mean, but so the Vikings, you were an outcast if you received anal penetration.
As a woman as well, or just as a male?
No, as a male, because it's female behaviour to be anally penetrated. There was a couple of Reddit threads. There's R Norse, which is okay. There's R Norse paganism, which is a dumpster fire of rainbow flags and neurodivergent what is it? Infinity signs.
What's neurodivergent infinity sign?
I think it's an infinity sign, the kind of 8 on its side. Yeah. That's one I've only
Not to divert the conversation too much, but isn't everyone neurodivergent? That's what I think now, because everyone's got something and everyone's on a scale of all these, everyone's on a scale of multiple different parts of intelligence and emotional intelligence and everything else. And so you could argue the case that everyone's neurodivergent because everyone's fucking different.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as normal or average, is there really? How I feel about it. I feel like even the most autistic person is just within the confines of normal human parameters.
Yeah.
But interestingly, literally today, I was listening to the Robert F. Kennedy interview, and he was talking, because I've dismissed the link between vaccines and autism for years, because I remember the propaganda around it is there's only one study and it was fake.
Yeah.
But Kennedy lays it out, because obviously they're crushing him at the moment in the media about whenever you hear about him, vaccine denier or
Yeah.
that's their first line with him. Personally, I love the man. Like, if it, like,
He's still a politician, so he's still a cunt.
he's a libertarian though.
He's still a politician.
Yeah, well.
Oh,
what about Rand Paul?
They're all cunts. They're all cunts. Anyone who's a politician is a cunt. They will be. They will be, 100%.
But that's
but
like
he's
saying,
less, as we said, there's a scale.
Yeah.
If he's within the parameters of cunt, he's on the far edge of, he's the least cunty of all of them.
See, I actually think he's unicorn. He's that unicorn. He's that rare breed where...
You'll be disagreeing
like,
in a few years.
Ex-heroin addict.
Right.
Right? So...
Oh, he's got to be a good lad then.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like Russell Brand. But, like, he's been through the ringer. Do you know what I mean? He's had a time. He's open and honest about his stuff. And, like, when you listen to him speak, you can't listen to someone speak for more than, like, 2 hours without getting a real sense of them. I think he's the one that could save us.
Yeah, that sort of talk worries me.
Wait,
That
but
sort of
get
like
to know
the
him.
one that could say, wow.
Get to know him. He'll never win. He'll never win because he won't get put forward for the ticket because he's so anti-war, so anti, like, Big Pharma.
So what, if he's libertarian, then he's what, part of the Libertarian Party? Or?
No, he is running for the Democrats.
Right, so, okay. So yeah, he's never going to get it.
Yeah, but he's the one, he's destroying the narrative of the war, he's tearing down vaccine. Because so I had always believed the propaganda that the vaccine and autism link was based on one study that was all the data was fake. But then, like, he's going, you've got this line from 1986, autism jumps up crazy. And actually, I'm old. I'm going to say it's now. I'm born in 1981. Autism wasn't a thing in my day. And there weren't lots of autistic kids at school. Like, looking back, I can go, oh yeah, that kid was autistic and that kid was. But I also was a teacher for 10 years. And the number of kids that were autistic spectrum diagnosis or, most of them had a diagnosis that wasn't really relevant, I'll be honest. Yeah. So I think there was an over-diagnosing. You get them, the beginning of the year, you look at all your charts, and you'd be like, oh my God, I've got 7 autistics in this class. And you'd look at them and you'd come in and you get to know them and you go, functional learner.
But that one is a proper fucking
That
autist.
one, he's got, but he wears a helmet and he bangs his head on the table. No, we didn't have those in mainstream schools. I did see some of those, actually. Yeah. I remember, like, a pair of twins, and it's bizarre, like, because the whole family were autistic. But the two twin brothers, one of them couldn't stay in the mainstream school. One of them could. Because the other one was, like, hiding under desks crying. So you do get, like, and, like, I remember one other kid who fucking barricaded himself in a room. Like, proper threw tables up against the doors and windows. Like, bless him. He was only, like, when you see him, he's, like, the nerdiest little kid. But, like, that kind of stuff, that kind of level of hardcore autism where they cannot function in society.
Yeah.
There aren't people like that in my generation.
Weren't there, or were they weren't going to?
The numbers are way lower.
That sounds social sciencey to me, because it's like, you're saying, oh, my parents didn't have anyone in their school year who was autistic.
Yeah.
But were they just, like, locked at home? Or
no.
Like,
well,
do you know what I mean? Like, because back in the day, like, people were like specials or in mental homes or like whatever.
Well, let's put it this way. The number of diagnoses has spiked, and then the conventional argument for why the number of diagnoses have spiked.
You're diagnosing more people.
Is that there's more diagnosis. Yeah, more diagnosis, more testing, more awareness. Because autism wasn't even a thing when I was at school. We didn't even know about it. The first I heard of it was when Rain Man, the film, came out.
Great film.
Yeah.
I watched that again recently. It's fucking brilliant.
Well, we've got an autistic friend I want to take him to a casino, but I bet he'd be shit.
No, he's not the right sort of autist.
No, not good with numbers. There is a spike. And then, so what Kennedy was talking about was there was an agreement in 1986 where the pharmaceutical companies turned around to Reagan and said, look, we want downstream liability protection. So from the vaccines, we don't want to get sued because we're losing money at the moment where we produce a vaccine and people are suing us for the injuries.
Right.
And Reagan said, make them safer. And they said, we can't. And this phrase is now in the documents. Vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. That phrase, vaccines are unavoidably unsafe, is written in the documentation that now gives them downstream liability. So they cannot be sued for vaccine injuries because vaccines are unavoidably unsafe.
It was the same with COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But from 1986, when they got that liability thing, the number of vaccines that were then mandated, or not mandated, but pushed onto people and kids and babies went up huge.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got experiments, like in Africa, they were giving them to these kids and they had this like cut-off line, whereas if they were X age, they could have it, and if they weren't, they couldn't. So they got 30 years of data that essentially, naturally, by the way it fell, you got two populations, one that had it at a certain age, one that hadn't had it until they were a bit older. The ones that had it when they were a bit older were bigger, heavier, had less illness.
The ones who had it.
The ones who hadn't had it.
Hadn't had it, okay.
Had gained more weight, had less illness, better performance, IQ. Like, it convinced me, listening to Kennedy, that actually, you know, I was... People keep calling me an anti-vaxxer, and I'm like, no, I'm just against this one vaccine, this COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
After listening to him today, I'm like, man, I ain't taking any vaccines ever again.
Yeah.
I was sold on it. Like, believe me, he's going hard.
Yeah.
And to take that viewpoint, which is completely against pharmaceutical industrial complex, he is not a captured politician. You cannot accuse him of being.
Well, he could be controlled opposition because there could be worse things than vaccines. Because they're covered anyway.
But he's against war, he's against vaccines, he's against all of the kind of thing. He was an Environmental Protection Agency lawyer. He believes that the answer to things is free market capitalism.
It sounds good. It sounds good.
Look into him. He's a good man.
It sounds good. It's just like, it's a bit like if you said to me that there's this crackhead that I know, right? He's a great bloke. He'll do babysitting for you, all right? And I promise you, the kids will be fine. I'll be like, he's a crackhead, mate. Bad shit is going to happen here. You go, no. This one, I'm telling you.
Because he's a politician.
This one is the unicorn of crackheads. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But you could be right. It could be the fucking amazing crackhead, lovely guy.
Well, I mean, like, the vast majority of there are good politicians here in the UK. There are people who are principled, like Zara Sultana. I don't know if you know of her.
The raisin one.
She's
been raising some good points. Actually.
Raising some good points, yeah. And who was that guy who got expelled from the Tory party recently? Andrew Bridgen.
No, I genuinely don't follow it.
You don't follow anything?
I don't vote. I don't follow any of it. I take the view that by voting or participating in any way, I'm legitimising that process, which is illegitimate. It is nonsense. They don't have any control over me. And fuck off. They are just humans like anyone else. They do not deserve. They can fuck off.
So I voted for my local residents association.
Yeah, but you would because you're a Karen.
Karen. But like, that's my local, these are my local people who want to be the local councillors.
Yeah.
That's
you do what you want, but I'm just saying I don't pay attention to it. So when you say these names,
I get what you're saying.
I know who Kennedy is. I know who he is.
Yeah.
He was speaking at the Bitcoin conference.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to the speech, but I know he was there. And like he's supposedly pro and all that. But it's just like, I just don't trust them.
Any of them?
No, until they prove me otherwise. Like if someone does something great long term, because it's all talk until they actually fucking do something.
True. I believed in Corbyn for a while as well.
But anyway, let's say he's not. But either way, he's at least speaking out about something that we believe is important. So you now think that...
So hang on, where will we go? Because it was like some kind of autism link that went to the vaccine.
You were talking about... First you were talking about MK Ultra.
Yeah. And Ted Kaczynski. We'll get back to that. And then we were talking about vaccines and how he's going hard about that, but not just COVID vaccines. But how did we get to vaccines from Ted Kaczynski?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Autism.
Oh, I think it was because we were talking about Kennedy assassination.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. And then you thought of Kennedy. Yeah. That's the link. And that's his uncle?
Yes. Yeah. And his dad was assassinated as well.
Okay.
Like, if he doesn't honestly, if they kill him, like, I'll cry. Because I do trust and believe in him. Like, I do think he is the one. But even he's like, he made a few references to it, like being nervous about being assassinated.
You've got to be if you're saying that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, his uncle, who pretty obviously was assassinated by the CIA, because he wanted to bring about peace and stop the military-industrial complex, turn off the war machine, And one of the things his uncle had said is, I want to take the CIA, smash it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it onto the four winds.
Okay.
And he's going around quoting that right now. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, just say it once you get in.
Yeah, but don't people, do you think now, we're digging down, these different... The problem is there's so many conspiracy theories which turn out to be true, right? Pretty much. You fucking take them off, right? But you don't know human being who has a job and family and life has time to really get deep on all of them. You just don't, because there's so much to dig into. But don't you think that the average person is now much more open to the idea that these things are
100%
are true, because they're becoming more and more obvious. And there's documents talking about CIA and MK Ultra. I'm pretty sure that's all out in the open, isn't it? It's
yeah. Well, it's on Wikipedia.
Yeah, so
and
it's
there
not
were redacted documents that were released as well.
So it's not
it's proven by their own files. So.
Yeah. So, but I think that people who are in our generation are much more likely to be okay, yeah, I believe that. They might be I can't bother to research it, or I don't really whatever. But they're more likely to believe it. Whereas if you go back 20 years, if I said to my mum or something, if I went yeah, basically the CIA, they were getting prostitutes to dose people up, just random punters with LSD, and then they're doing mind control and then get them to kill people. She'd be like, oh, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, she'd be like,
oh, God's sake.
What have you been smoking? Yeah.
So,
but then it's true. But it's true. This is not in terms of, it's not a theory. It's fact. It's documented fact, and it's been admitted by the people that did it. And this is the thing. There's a lot of things that aren't theories, like the WEF, the World Economic Forum. Yeah. All you have to do is go down a Google search and read, the World Economic Forum is a meeting of industrialists and global leaders who want to inform and influence world policy. Yeah. It says it right there.
Yeah, and look at Klaus Schwab.
Oh, yeah.
Just look at him.
What a great man.
If you showed that to any kid, you go, goodie or baddie?
Well, this is the thing is imagine I'm pitching a film to you and it's right, so the bad guy, he's this bald guy with glasses and he's got this German accent and he wears this black Star Wars thing, and you'll be right, slow down, you've lost us, it's not realistic enough, it's not plausible, you need to scale it back, make him a little bit more believable.
Yeah.
But it's real.
So...
Right, I've got one for you. Whilst we're on the WEF, the fourth industrial revolution is the Fourth Reich. So Klaus Schwab's father was
eugenics, wasn't he?
Was a Nazi.
Yeah.
I believe so. I've looked into this and the evidence is a little bit sketchy to find, and all I find is fact checkers telling me that I'm not right.
We say you are right.
Well, yeah, that's literally how it is nowadays.
Yeah.
When you get fact checked, you're like, I'm onto something.
So fucking true.
He calls it the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
His father would have called it the Third Reich.
So, this is where it gets weird. It's all of these things seem to tie into one another. You've got all the financial control and all that shit, right? That's one kind of thing. Then you've got all of the climate science stuff, which we'll probably get onto in a bit. Then you've got the control of people and freedom to assemble, and World Economic Forum and all this, and CBDCs and blah, 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 and all this stuff.
Well, let's do a Russell Brand on it, right? So what Brand does is he doesn't elaborate or make up any assertions. He just uses their own published documents and things like that, right? So what has Klaus Schwab said? He said, we've got to prepare for a more angry world, right?
Okay.
So he said, with the pandemics, now I actually fucking watched this video the other day, and I noted the date that he was talking about this. It was May or June of 2020. Now, I know that we locked down in March time.
Yeah, it's pretty early though.
But he was talking about we have to prepare for a more angry world, the money from the pandemics. And the way he said pandemic, there was a little pause in his voice where he was oh, should I be saying that yet? Because he was fully up on it. Because there was a pandemic meeting, a simulation meeting, and it was in 2019, but it was after the first cases had been reported. And actually, this week it's been finally revealed. The first couple of people who caught COVID-19, do you know where they all worked?
In that Wuhan lab.
Not in the wet market opposite.
Yeah.
That poor wet market that's been denigrated and shamed.
They were eating deep fried bats.
Well, I don't think they were even fucking deep fried. They're just live.
Oh, fuck.
And that's it. They just, that's how they keep the food fresh. They keep it live in a cage. That's what's wet about it, the blood.
Yeah, but you don't have to eat it fucking live, do you?
No, I'm pretty sure they butcher it for you there, and I'm pretty sure you turn up and they give you this poor little emaciated bat, and they're just you want it, chop, 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 and they just fucking stick it in a bag for you, so you know it's fresh.
Yeah.
But so they had this pandemic simulation meetings, and those things, there's no conspiracy around the fact that people have theoretical meetings what would we do, what should we do,
like a fire drill.
Yeah, absolutely. But imagine going on a fire drill and going, oh, yeah, but I've just started a small fire in the cupboard. So, I mean, literally, because there were some people that had already, the COVID was already out. It had already released, but only a few people had got it.
Yeah.
And people that knew about the release from the lab and the leak were there at this pandemic simulation meeting.
Right, yeah.
Sitting there talking about it. And they're helping inform the global policy about what's going to happen. That's fucked.
Of course,
that's fucked up.
Do you know what's more fucked is that all of this shit was said day one by so many people.
Yeah.
You didn't know what to believe and what not to believe. All I believed at the time was this is bullshit. Whatever they're going to do is not for our good. That's all. I was I don't know if it's a lab or whatever, but I wouldn't put anything past them because they're cunts. But the more that comes out, the longer it goes, you're oh yeah. It was all right.
You see, I was down for the idea that they didn't leak it. It wasn't come from a lab. It's just a natural thing, but they're going to use it to their advantage and make money from it. And the more the time goes on, it's it was man-made. It was leaked from the lab. Also, that research was banned in the US, and Fauci then outsourced it to China, rebranded it.
Yeah.
He should go to jail. He should.
But he is science, though, mate.
Yeah, Fauci
you
is.
You should know science. This as a science.
I love this video splice that you'll see on Instagram a lot of him going, well, I never told the government to lock down. I told the president to shut lockdown. They can't, and Trudeau as well. I didn't call those truckers, I didn't say anything about those truckers. These people are white supremacists and misogynists.
Horrendous, yeah.
It's like they don't use the internet. It's like they don't know, oh shit, there's videos of me out there.
No, I think they know, but they also know that 90% of people just won't fucking look into anything. And they'll just listen to whatever they're told. And they are right. Even now, all the things we're talking about are verifiably true so far today. I think. I think.
I mean, the only thing we said that maybe is sketchy is Kennedy was assassinated by the CIA.
Okay, yeah.
But,
so we don't know.
It's pretty universally agreed, but yeah.
Everything else, I think, is provable and you could check.
They're not really conspiracy theories.
No, they're
Klaus Schwab's dad being a Nazi is a little bit.
Okay,
I'm not
we'll
sure
double
about
check
that
that
one.
All right,
pull it up, Jamie.
But everything else is. But if you said that to, I reckon, still 90% of people, genuinely, I think, not even 90% of boomers. I mean, 90% of people. I think they'd go, "You're a fucking lunatic," and they said on the news that it's not true. Even now, family members of mine who have said, "Don't get the vaccine. It's not going to work. You're not going to stop the spread. It's not going to help you in any way. It's going to damage your immune system." I said all this stuff and we argued and argued and argued. A few of them have got really sick. They've got shingles. People have been in hospital, heart issues. It's been quite bad, actually. And it's only one family member has gone, "Oh, because she got shingles." But she hasn't really looked any further, but she was "Oh, maybe you're right." The rest, still, even though it's all out there, even though they're experiencing issues, even though all the things that I've said are going to happen have happened, they're no.
You know why?
Why?
It's easier to fool someone than it is to have them admit that they've been fooled.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It is true.
I wouldn't want to.
People double down.
Yeah.
Doubling down on anything. That people doubled down on Trump. They voted him in, and it turned out he was a bit of a sleazeball. I mean, to be honest, like, I cannot believe, like, I am waiting for the next American president, because every time it's like George W. Bush, you're like, I can't get worse than this. Yeah. And then you got like Donald Trump, and then it's like, can't get worse than this. You got Joe Biden. It's like, fucking, who is next? Who is next? And I'm Britain. Come on.
I've lost track who.
I mean, we are killing it in terms of putting morons in charge of our country. We're doing brilliantly.
Here's one for you. You'll like this. Who was our president, the girl who looked like a fucking owl that's fallen out of a tree?
Oh, you're talking about the tall one. The one who did the dance.
What's that? Yeah, that one. What's
that? Theresa May.
Theresa May. Yeah. Crop dusted her in the gym.
Did you?
Yes.
Tall as fuck, isn't she?
Pretty tall.
Yeah, she's like my height, 6'1" or 6'2".
She's pretty tall. Got right up within a foot. Farted loudly. Crop dusted that bitch.
She knew.
Oh, she fucking knew.
She knew that it was a political protest.
She knew.
You're lucky they didn't use the new police powers on you. Like, you'd have been locked up in a van before you knew it. Like, what?
One of my proudest moments, actually. Nothing needed to be said. Just a look. And she couldn't move. She was in a compromised position.
she was catching her breath.
Catching her breath.
Well, I'm more interested in what was her workout regimen.
Oh, it's fucking useless. It was like, I can't remember what she was doing. She's like really, really light little weights, just like flapping around. It wasn't anything good, but she was compromised.
See, one of the schools I worked at, she was our local MP, and she came when she was, I think she was Secretary of State or Home Secretary, one of them. She pulled up in a fucking armoured car. Like, I'm out there like a twat, you know, like an inflatable, not inflatable, but a big puffer high-vis jacket, like waving the cars into the car park for this, like, I think it was like presentation evening, celebration awards evening. And she came to do like the keynote speech.
Yeah.
And I'm waving all the cars through it. And then this big fucking armoured car just drives past me, like completely ignores me. And I'm like, oh, that'll be Theresa May before she's Prime Minister Ops. And like, how the mighty have fallen. Like that level of like personal protection that she had.
I shat in her face.
Yeah.
This is when I was training a lot, eating a lot of eggs, a lot of meat, a lot of protein. I took years off her life. Oh. She could have been a smoker.
Yeah, she was like, fuck Saddam Hussein, he's got weapons of mass destruction. Forgive me for this, but I do feel a bit sorry for her. Because I don't think she was part of the game. Like, whereas Liz Truss knew exactly what she was doing. She knew that she was only going to be in for a month or two.
Right.
Like, she probably thought she was going to get 6 months or a year.
Right.
She didn't think it would be 40 days or whatever.
Yeah.
But she knew she was coming in to fuck some shit up and then get kicked out.
Yeah.
Like, she knew that. Whereas Theresa May, I think she was a willing pawn who was played because she hasn't retired.
Right.
She stayed on as an MP. Whereas, Liz Truss was just fucked up. Liz Truss, by the way, who started out as a member of the Liberal Democrat Party.
Okay.
How would you start being a libertarian? I mean, the Lib Dems, to me, are not libertarian anymore.
No
like,
one is.
They're useless. They are just Labour woke. But she started off, like, moaning about the monarchy and how it shouldn't be, there shouldn't be this. And then she's just, like, the most fucking corporate captured politician.
I think you've got to be, haven't you, just to get in?
I don't know. I think some people are just like, well, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, when are we going to learn this? That we shouldn't be putting people in charge of shit. But yeah, like, I do have a weird kind of respect for Theresa May. I don't think she knew she was being played as much as she was. Whereas, like, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, they're all fucking evil cunts.
Yeah.
They're just in it for the money, just ripping us off left, right, and centre. Like Guy Fawkes. Have you watched V for Vendetta recently?
I watched it during COVID, actually.
See, that is a perfect time to watch that because the virus thing. It's freaky how appropriate. And
yeah, it's actually a very good movie. It was a good time to watch it. I think it was just after I'd come back from that Bitcoin beach, that first one. And like everyone there was like obviously anti-vax, and like we were just like completely ignoring the rules and just like out there. And it was actually so refreshing. And then I remember coming back and watching that, and I was just like, fuck this shit. I went through like phases of it, of like, fuck this, and then just being like, just let it play out.
So you're ahead of me because you were saying things and I was like, I can't believe he's saying that. I can't believe and I remember saying to someone, well, I've got a friend who says taxation is theft. I mean, come on, what? Like now I'm like, taxation is theft, government is tyranny, war is mass murder, like all of it, like every single thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my views are becoming less extreme.
Really?
No, as in they're the same views as they were. I feel like they're more normalised.
See, what you were saying about the whole conspiracy theory, actually, like, I'm come across quite a few normies, and I tell you which one it is that's brought us everyone together. Jeffrey Epstein.
Good guy.
Great guy. Lovely man.
Shame he killed himself.
On a completely unrelated note, how are the Clintons doing right now?
Enjoying some pizza, probably.
Yeah, I probably should shut up or I'll kill myself. But like that has come right, like that one. The fact that it's never talked about in the media, but everyone knows about it. Everybody knows about it. That's the one. Like people know, and that's the one that unites them. Is because everyone knows that one. And when it gets about the kids.
I couldn't go into that one because it fucks my head up too much. My missus went down the Pizzagate and all that shit. That was in, I think it was like COVID time where she was going down that rabbit hole just because she was like locked in the house. And she like kept telling me stuff and I was like, look, you don't need to tell me. I know the shit that goes on, but I don't want to know the specific, I actually don't want to know about it because I was so involved in like, fucking hell, what they're doing with the CBDC, what they're doing with the lockdowns, the virus, and my stress levels were like really high. I was falling out with all family and friends, arguing all the time, all this, and I want my freedom. Like I'm a freedom maximalist, and like being told what I can and can't do. I was like, fuck. I was getting arguments every day about the mask and all this shit. I was like, Jazio, I can't take any more. I don't actually want to know, especially when it comes to kids. I'm like, that's the thing that like that's the worst thing. It doesn't get any worse than that in my head, so I'm just like, I just don't want to fucking know about it. It seems like that, like blackmail is the currency.
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious that Epstein was involved in some intelligence operations and agencies, and whether that was CIA or Mossad, so the Israeli special forces. But the idea that they compromise key individuals. Yeah. So one thing, I think it was Russell Brand. Did you watch much of his content? Do you find him a prick? A lot of people think he's a prick.
I used to really like Brand, like years ago when I used to watch some of his stand-up, and I was like, he's fucking funny actually. And then I started to find that he like I know he's like part of his show is like he's a bit pompous and he like loves himself. Yeah. I know it's like part of the thing, a bit like Gervais and like that.
Yes.
But there was a point where I was like, you're becoming too verbose and too... that I just switched off from him. But then I did watch a show, I think it was with Rogan where he was on there, and I was like, because he used to talk over people all the time, and I was like, it's a bit annoying, but he was much better that time, and I was like, no, I like you again.
Yeah, he's doing well. It's interesting you drew the same comparison that I would, which is Gervais. Like, I love Gervais, but my missus can't stand Gervais or Brand because of their caricature and their...
Right.
Their overblown, over the top personality, the pretentiousness.
It's part of a joke. They're doing it on purpose.
Well, Brand isn't. Brand, by his own admission, he is a very egotistical, self-obsessed person.
Yeah.
He talks about that openly and honestly, and I've got respect for that, but yeah, he's annoying.
Yeah.
Like, my journey with these kind of characters, I normally don't like them to start with, and then I get the joke and I see through it and I understand it.
He does the truths, doesn't he?
Truths.
The Truths, isn't that his show? It's like not the news, it's the Truths.
Oh.
He does like a spin on it. It's like he does a news show, but it's not the news, it's the truths, the truth about the world. And
he does this thing where he only uses published documentation.
Right.
So he's not ever making things up or drawing conclusions. He's just, and like, when you see it laid out, so that like, I started getting into him a bit more heavily when it was the Nord Stream pipeline.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Russia has blown up their own pipeline. And I was like, That
Why?
doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yeah.
There's video clips of Joe Biden going, if Russia invades Ukraine, that pipeline's going to close.
Yeah.
And then the interviewer, like, it was someone in the audience goes, how? And he's like, just trust me, it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, they blew up their own pipeline. And I remember I was on a train traveling to Birmingham, bizarrely. I read the news article about this missile that had strayed into Poland. And obviously Ukraine went, it's a Russian missile.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, what's the betting? That's a Ukrainian missile, 100%. And it was fired on purpose. Turns out, what was it? Turns out, it fucking was Ukrainian.
Yeah.
But Zelensky's there going, oh, it was Russian, it's Russian, attack them. Like, we are being pushed so aggressively towards the brink of nuclear war. And there are a lot of voices like Russell Brand, like Joe Rogan, like RFK, various libertarian voices who are standing up and saying it. And then, you know what you get? It's like, oh, you're just using Putin talking points, or you're a right winger. Are you a right winger?
Yeah.
That's the bizarre thing is when I meet people now, because I'm now full head on into libertarianism. I love the Part of the Problem podcast. I don't know if you know that, Dave Smith.
Yeah, but I haven't listened to it.
It's a good one. And it's very interesting because one of the things they do is if you're attacking the right, you attack them from the right. So right-wing people, you attack them with right-wing ideas. Left-wing people, you attack them with left-wing ideas. You never attack from the opposite side.
Right.
But what happens is now that you've kind of got a real clear viewpoint, which is like, look, I believe in ultimate freedom until the point where it
interferes with someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll speak to someone, and if they're a bit right-wing, they'll be like, oh, this guy's on my team. And you'll talk to them, and then they'll open up a little bit, and then they'll be like, oh, hang on a minute, you're a fucking communist. You fucking Marxist. You socialist, and then they'll back off. But the opposite will happen. You'll talk to someone who's super woke and left wing, and initially they're like, "Oh, you're just like me. You understand. You believe in like everyone should have their own like tolerance and
blue hair and rape children." What?
Well, yeah, and then, and then all of a sudden you'll say something, and then they'll be like, "Oh my god, you're a fucking fascist Nazi Trump supporter." Yeah, and they're like, "I'm not even American." Right?
Yeah.
So it's very bizarre, and I think that is the real trick that the mainstream media have pulled, is trying to present it as a left-right paradigm. Like, there's only two sides.
Yeah.
But whereas we know it's just two ends of the same fucking dildo used to fuck you up the arse. Yeah. But actually, if you look at the political spectrum, you've got, libertarianism, it's not in the middle. It's something separate. It's something different. But
there's no middle ground to either of those. They're kind of the same thing, that just fuck you with slightly different flavours.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, a double-ended dildo, one side's red and one side's blue.
Yeah.
It's the same outcome.
Well, it's like government should have control either to give all the power to the elite, or government should have control to give all the power to the people. Yeah. And it's like, no, the government should have the minimum amount of control.
Yeah. The
government should be as small as possible because they cause all the problems.
And that's why I think, like early stages of the Bitcoin stuff, like when I came like running to you, I was like, oh, fucking hell, talking about like government and like taking away their money and like that you're not going to have a pension, and like the early days where I was like a fucking badger. Like,
can we actually take a moment, like, because the way that you and I met, we were introduced by a mutual friend because you wanted to know how to use Bitcoin, purchase things. And I was already like...
You were already purchasing.
I still am to this day, but I don't use Bitcoin anymore.
Yeah, you use Monero.
I know, and I'm going to say it. I love Monero.
Yeah, this is always going to go live on my show. I talk about Monero on the show.
Do you?
I think I'm probably one of the only podcasts who's like... Because the thing is, like, my show focused quite a lot on the privacy side.
Yeah.
And, like, in reality, like, most of the privacy guys that I know in Bitcoin either use Monero, even though they know how to use Bitcoin well, and but they use Monero, or at least they respect that it's there for a reason and it has its use.
Yeah.
But there is like quite a big cultural thing in Bitcoin where like everything that isn't Bitcoin is a shitcoin. Right?
You have to be a Bitcoin maximalist.
Yeah, and like if you use anything or think about anything like other than Bitcoin, then like you should be like stoned or whatever. It's
Ahmed.
yeah, it's good. The truth is like it has its place and it's useful for things like if you've got your like doxic change and things like that in Samurai Wallet, and like you're like, what do I do with this? And it's like, well, okay, you can do an XMR swap, and there are, or like if someone's using Bitcoin privately is very fucking hard. Even if you're like a nerd about it, it's not easy. Like people say this, but it's not. There's so many like ways to fuck up. So if someone is in a life or death situation, someone who is like buying something that their government wouldn't want them to buy, why not use it? I find it annoying to like pigeonhole things into like it's not Bitcoin. It doesn't mean it's like the best investment in the world. It just means it's fucking useful.
Yeah.
Just like a gun can be useful, or cash can be useful, or a fucking car can be useful. Well, or you can't invest in a car because it's not Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, I know, but it does a quite useful job for me. It gets me from A to B. Bitcoin doesn't do that.
Mm.
So yeah. But anyway, yeah. So you actually helped me with that. Because you've already fucking around with it, but you weren't.
Like I purchased my first, online sports goods in 2016 when the Bitcoin price was in the hundreds. Mm. I fucking gutted about that because, the memes where you're like, oh, I could have like 4 Teslas by now if I didn't spend it all on like moon rocks of MDMA. Not that meme applies because I was buying sporting goods. Yeah, I told you I found that the dust in a wallet. I finally managed to get into this wallet and get the dust. And it was like 20 quid in change. Like it must have been like pennies at the time. But yeah, like I believe in a 2-coin system, like Bitcoin and Monero, because the strength of Bitcoin is its weakness. Because the visibility, you need the visibility in order to have that proof of reserves. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have these issues with companies faking how much money the ledgers. You need to have that visibility in order to have transparency in the financial system. So Bitcoin provides that kind of stake. It's the treasury. It's like, we know how much money you've got because this is your store of value. So Bitcoin is a store of value. I would never invest in Monero and use it as a store of value. I think that would be dumb. But in terms of like a way of transacting and sending money, it's way faster, it's way cheaper, and it's way, way, way more secure and anonymous. So to me,
you could say secure. I think you could say anonymous.
Well,
it's not more secure.
No, you're right. It's the same security. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not as censorship resistant. It's not as secure, but
it's more censorship resistant. Well, because of the GPU.
No, it's not. It's not because.
I'm going to defer to your knowledge.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, if a government wanted to attack Monero, if you want to attack Monero using GPU, like graphics cards and shit, they can comfortably take control of a huge amount of graphics cards in data centers and anywhere else at any time and take control of that network. If they want to do the same with Bitcoin, they would have to actually produce specific ASICs.
Yeah.
And they'd have to do that in a covert manner, and they'd have to get a ridiculous amount of power, and they'd have to do it without anyone knowing, and then they'd have to get control of that network somehow. It's 1,000,000 times harder. I don't know about 1,000,000. It's way fucking harder. They'd have to coordinate globally across all the different governments, blah, blah, blah. It's really hard. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's really fucking hard. Whereas Monero,
I get what you're saying.
It's not. So when I say, like, I think it's cheaper to transact in. Generally, I don't use it, but supposedly faster, definitely more private. Navigate, like no question. You can use Bitcoin privately, but it's hard. Like, it's not, and it's like also some people don't actually want to learn how to run a node and do that in the proper way, and then run Samurai or Sparrow Wallet, and then learn how to manage those UTXOs and make sure they don't link things and blah, blah, blah. Some people just want to buy drugs. It's like, if you just want to do that.
Who would do that?
Oh, dirty.
Fucking scumbags.
Scumbags. But,
God.
But or they just want to fucking have some privacy, which is like, so, yeah, I don't hate on there at all.
See, again, that phrase that I used earlier, its strength is its weakness. So to me, like the ASIC resistant aspect of the XMR network, where you can't use the specific built chips, you have to use a GPU to be a miner. That's a kind of strength, because what it encourages is community mining and community networking, because Bitcoin has become quite centralized and pooled. Like most of the mining networks are in China.
No, they're not.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this changed?
No, it's changed quite a lot. There's a lot in North
But
America.
they are still major farms though. Like they're centralized.
It's more centralized than I'd like it to be.
Yeah.
In terms of like location, just because of the cost of power.
Yes. But you've still got these major, like, you've got these huge Bitcoin farms that are quite dominant, right?
Yeah, but there's multiple pools.
Yeah, I get that.
I agree with you. Like, I run a show called Pleb Miner Monthly, which is specifically about getting Bitcoin miners, home miners, to run setups, to have them in home, and then use that as their heating, and finding all these clever ways to make it more profitable for them, blah, blah, blah. Like, I do a whole show around it because I think it's important. It's definitely, like, something that I consider, but I think when I look at it, I look at the trade-offs, I'm way, way more comfortable with Bitcoin security, censorship resistance than I am with something like Monero.
Mm.
But I'm not, I don't care, basically.
No, you've not got a dog in the fight. You want a decentralized currency network, and there could be 10 coins, as long as they're built around solid principles. And that's the thing. Bitcoin's built around solid principles. Monero's built around solid principles. I have yet to come across a third coin.
Yeah, me too. There's nothing else.
There's no other coins where I'm like, the principles are sound.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, there could be 10. And as long as they are built around core values that make sense.
Is it useful for some people? Does it give some people more freedom? And if it does, then I'm like, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I don't quote me on this. It's possible that the Ethereum network could potentially have some use case for like smart contracts.
I think it's shit.
Yeah. Well, I'll take your word for that. It's possible. Like, I agree. I'm happy to agree, because I think they'll.
But again, like, I've changed my opinion on it a little bit, where I'm like, I only have Bitcoin, I only use Bitcoin, I only invest in Bitcoin, but I don't care what anyone else does.
No.
Because I believe enough in the technology. If I'm worried about someone else using another coin and investing in that and pumping it, like, yeah, I feel bad when it's obvious pump and dumps, and I feel bad for people. I'm like, yeah, you're going to get rugged here, and there's like complete cunts who are fucking just like, they're just thieves and criminals. Yeah, it's annoying.
It takes credibility away from those.
It's annoying, but then at the same time, I'm like, well, if I don't believe in any sort of government or any sort of regulation or anything like that, then I have to accept that shit like that's going to happen, and that the world's going to regulate itself, like people are going to have to learn. And so in that case, if I'm running around spending my time shouting at shitcoiners, then I feel like it's just a fucking waste of time.
You're not going to get anywhere, are you? Like, no. One thing I've realised, you can't tell people things.
No.
I mean, you can try, and then you can you can send the message, but they don't get it. People have to get it for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The more you tell someone,
the more they push it away.
Exactly. So I've adopted a personal policy of neutrality, because if I were to go, right, listen, I need to talk to you about this issue, I'm going to make it worse. So by being completely Swiss about it, completely neutral, I am doing something, because I'm preventing it from getting worse by trying to, have interventionist foreign policy, America. You just sort of sit back, but there is this thing of active passiveness. So actually going, right, I'm going to not engage with that behaviour. I'm going to pull myself out of that.
Yeah.
And my absence is my action.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying to you about with politics, when people talk to me about politics.
Yeah, don't vote.
Okay, they're all cunts, don't vote.
Don't vote.
It's the same
Yeah.
But that annoys people as well. I need to piss.
Yeah, go for it. Do you want to pause?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've got to do the clap.
Right, so 3,
2, 1.
Right.
So they're all cunts.
Don't vote, they're all cunts. I totally agree.
Okay. All right, so let's get into some more conspiracy things. Can we talk about the big one that I want to really talk about? Because this is one I know you've actually dived into.
I'm interested.
Climate change.
Oh.
It would be interesting to hear your perspective on it, because I know you've been looking into it. I'm open to it being like, yeah, it's just total bullshit. But I'm also not, I haven't looked into it enough to be like, I can really fucking talk on the matter.
Well, like a lot of people over the last couple of years, I guess the whole thing, COVID changing your perspective massively when you realise that the narrative that's out there in the mainstream is a lie, and then you start to question other things. But you need things that make you, like there's got to be some things that catch your attention. So like COVID, I was immediately triggered from the off because of the fact that it was a coronavirus, like a cold, and the cure for the common cold didn't exist and it never had. It was a joke. So it's like, well, how are we going to cure the common cold? Like even straight away. But with climate change, I never even thought that it was a lie. Like I always was completely on board with it all. Same with like oil's going to run out. I thought oil would have run out by now. That's what I was learned at school.
Yeah, I wasn't going to correct you. I was like, torch you cunt.
yeah. It might. Do you think it'd be obvious to listeners that in the break we suddenly come back sound a little bit different? There's a little more nasalness to the voice, and a little bit more throaty,
or rasp.
I have to be honest. Like I obviously referenced Rogan a lot tonight. Like I still listen to all of his ones where he has a scientist on.
He's good. I like him.
And it was one particular guy, Kunis, and there was a lot of things that he talks about that then you then go looking for. So there's events in the past like 1,000 years. So like the late medieval warm period and the Roman warm period. So there was a time where it was so warm in Britain that you could grow like large amounts of grapes here in the UK. I mean, like right now, you could probably fucking...
Yeah, it's pretty hot now.
Yeah,
was it 30?
Fucking hot, yeah. And it's an interesting one because I've got a mate, and he challenges me on it, and he's like quite hardcore. I don't know his political views, but he's always like been very critical of things. He was one... like back in the day, hated the fact that the TV license. Oh, bullshit, it's people in prison for not paying the TV license.
Yeah, I fucking hate the TV license.
That one really pisses me off. But he pushes back on the old climate change one a lot because he's like, well, it's getting hotter. And it's like, it is. It does get hotter every year. We do seem to be breaking records. But the question is that caused by human action and human intervention? And it's like, well, we know that we have been releasing CO2, but like, one of the things that strikes me is we think that we are now putting out more CO2 than we've ever been doing before. That's not true. Like in particular places like London, like in the 1890s, like early 1900s, we're fucking churning out, like just burning coal.
Yeah.
Just burning it. Like the pea supers. You know what that is, the pea super?
No, I've heard the term, but it was like smog in London.
Yeah, so like smoke would mix with the fog to form the like a kind of mixture in the air. But when the sun would shine on it, the energy from the light would cause changes in the chemical reactions.
Right.
So there'd be changes in the composition of this cloud.
Right.
And it would start to form really poisonous, harmful gases.
Right, okay.
So it would take on like a greenish colour.
Oh shit, okay.
And that's why it was called a pea super. So
you
actually had toxic smog clouds like blowing through London. Like I remember seeing in a book, like these pictures of police officers with like things wrapped around their face, like proper like like ninja style face mask.
Yeah.
And like in a cloud, just under a lamppost, it's a white pea super was a phrase to reference the really, like, people died in those smogs.
Yeah.
It like killed them. So the idea that we are producing more CO2 per minute now, like there are more people.
But could that not be like playing devil's advocate? Like could it not be that like China and India and wherever are still just fucking churning?
Well, yeah.
And maybe we're maybe cleaner in the West or whatever, like in parts. But it is possible that we are creating more.
Okay. Let me put it this way, right?
But it doesn't mean that it's the cause.
The primordial atmosphere of the Earth,
yeah.
Right? So before there was any life, so we're going back like 4 billion years now, right? So the universe is about 14 billion years old. It took about 10 billion years before our Earth formed in our solar system. So about 4 billion years. And then probably about 1 billion years into its cool down, you're starting to get like, it's like about 2 or 3 billion years in, it starts to get life on it, right? Before there was life, Earth's atmosphere had no oxygen and no nitrogen. It was basically all carbon monoxide, methane.
Okay.
Right? It was proper and ammonia.
Okay.
So it was a complete shit show in terms of the atmosphere would have been super insulated.
Yeah.
Right? So the Earth was super duper hot. So the Earth is like, that's the extreme level it's at now. Right? That's where it started. There was literally no oxygen, almost all greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
Right? Now you've got a state where you've got now, what percentage do you think of going from 100% greenhouse gases to where we are today, what percentage of the atmosphere do you think is a greenhouse gas?
I genuinely don't know, but I'll guess like 10%.
10%. You would think because of the alarmism, that's what they would, 10% of our atmosphere is greenhouse gases.
Right.
It's less than 0.5%.
Okay.
Probably less than like 0.1%.
In what? That's how much is carbon monoxide?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. So why? So plants don't really eat a lot then? Because there's a fucking lot of plants and they're big.
Well, I mean,
why do they eat less than humans? Not eat, but you know what I mean?
They take it in, yeah.
Because that's not a lot.
Well, I mean, we have carbon sinks. So there's not just like, in order for like the atmosphere to change, the evolution of Earth's atmosphere over time, as I say, it started off with no oxygen. So you get plants bringing in the carbon dioxide.
So plants were first.
Well, I mean, you've got bacteria and stuff like that.
Whatever.
But you've got bacteria kind of fixing the ammonia. So you've got the nitrogen cycle. It occurs to me, because right there, you've got some bioactive fish tanks in my living room here.
Mm-hmm.
No
quite
filters.
Cool, actually.
No filters. And then they all work on the establishment of 2 cycles, the nitrogen cycle and the carbon cycle. So the nitrogen cycle is you've got nitrifying bacteria who work on like ammonia. And so that's like a lot of fecal matter, but it's nitrogen based. So the nitrogen is the central molecule in that thing. And there's energy released in this cycle. And then you've got a carbon cycle that builds on top of it. So you probably had nitrogenic based life first, which was then superseded by carbon based life. But they kind of work on top of each other. So what you've got, as I said, the early atmosphere is like ammonia, which is nitrogen and hydrogen and carbon dioxide, all in the atmosphere. And then you get this first form of life that starts pulling in the ammonia and turning it into nitrogen. Nitrogen's nice and neutral, super Swiss. Nitrogen is super inert. And what they've done is they've taken all that ammonia, turned it into nitrogen, and that's 80% of our atmosphere now. 80% of our atmosphere is completely inert, dead gas.
Right.
Nitrogen does fuck all.
Okay.
Right, it's 2 nitrogen molecules, but they're triple bonded together.
Okay.
That means that they're super locked down.
Okay.
They've got this, they're not just bonded, they're triple bonded. So you can when you run air through a fire, like an engine, it's taking in all the nitrogen as well. And then even in the extreme heat of the engine, those don't really degrade very much. They do produce some like nitrous oxide compounds. So 80% of our
Doesn't nitrous oxide burn hotter than...
if you inject nitrous oxide into the engine, it's the oxygen that it's bringing that helps it burn.
So it burns faster.
Yeah, but if you're bringing nitrogen into an engine, it's reacting with the oxygen just because of the heat.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but and you're forming nitrous oxide. But if you form nitrous oxides and then inject them into the engine, they're bringing oxygen with them.
Okay.
Right, so that's what makes it burn faster.
But so 70% of the...
80%
80% of the atmosphere is...
nitrogen.
Which just pointless, does nothing. Well,
Yeah.
not pointless, but like, yeah, it doesn't affect anything. And then what percent is oxygen?
Like 19.9.
Okay. And then 0.5% is...
Well, like there's like up to 1% of other stuff.
Which would include carbon dioxide.
Yeah, but like it also includes radioactive argon.
Okay, what's that?
Like there are certain elements like helium that don't bond with anything, so they're monatomic. So they're just like
Bounce around.
Yeah, but they're literally small as fuck.
Right.
So even the heaviest one of them, because they don't join up with each other, that makes them super small and light. So they're almost always gases. And as they get heavier, they tend to get more radioactive. So you got helium is an example, xenon, krypton, all the things that are losing neon signs. But when you get lower down, you get to radon, which is like radioactive.
So you've got all those things flying around and oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Yeah, but like less than 1%, way less.
So the climate alarmist people would say, yeah, but there's too much. It's dangerous because you've got too much. And if we continue like we are, then in 2012 and 2020 and 2030, we're going to be, the world's ended.
Well, I saw a news article today that said we've passed the climate threshold. We've passed the point of no going back again. I don't know if that was written.
Was that
ironically.
satirical? Or
I don't think it was, because I have a work laptop and there's like a little bar on the bottom where as your mouse hovers over it, you get all the news. Man, it is super mainstream narrative. Like like everything.
It's like MSN.
Oh my god, yes.
Shit.
Well, because it's like it's integrated into Windows, isn't it? So it's like whatever Bill Gates wants you to see. It's fucking hilarious.
Brilliant.
It is like I've started like turning off certain media outlets because they're just never gonna they're never gonna appeal to me.
But so we've gone past that threshold again.
Yeah,
but even though we're already fucked, don't drive your car.
Look, I guess the point I'm trying to make, like what I'm saying, like extreme one end is all greenhouse gases. And then we're at the other end where it's almost no greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
Right? And we actually have a dynamic system where the life on Earth transforms and changes the atmosphere. That is natural, right? Before humans were here, you had bacteria fixing the ammonia into nitrogen. You had plants fixing all the methane and carbon dioxide back into oxygen and converting the atmosphere. It's the natural order that life forms mess with the atmosphere of the planet. And yet there's that famous clip. I don't know who he is. This is an Australian bloke who's like a millionaire, but he's an old boy and he shouts at people and he's like,
oh yeah. So, I know the guy.
Yeah. So the clip is this woman's like, for the first time, what are you and your banker friends going to do about like climate change? He goes, thank you, sit down. And she just keeps going, no, I'm not finished.
Yeah.
And she goes on like, the first time there's an organism changing its atmosphere. And it's like, it's not the first time that an organism has changed the atmosphere. Yeah. Like, this is what we do. This is the natural process of life. And in actual fact, what we've got now is a super dynamic, super stable system, right? I mentioned my kind of weird bioactive fish tank aquariums. They're super stable. If you take a small tank of water, right, and put a load of fish in it with no plants, they'll die. So in order to keep them going, you need a fucking artificial filter to like clean up the water. And all this kind of stuff. And then if you put too much food in, they can die. Do you know what I mean? Because the food rots and then it creates pollution in it. I could throw as much food as I want into these fish tanks because they are fully planted, right? They have enough. And like, if there's too much shit, the plants just take it up.
It's a free market.
Yeah. And if there's not enough shit, they'll eat the plants.
I'm going to have a look at them actually. You should have lights behind them.
Well, they go to sleep. They have a timer on the lights.
Oh, okay. I won't.
So no, you can just switch it on. So
you've got that little. He looks like a little shark, doesn't he? That one.
That's it's a type of catfish, but yeah, got better splendors. Like, also used to, when I was a kid, they were called Siamese fighting fish.
Oh, yeah.
Siam is Thailand.
You can't keep two males together.
No, if we put these two fuckers together, so you've got Captain America up here with his red, white, and blue.
Yeah. What's that one called?
This one's called Floki Jr.
Okay.
Because Floki died. And then you've got...
Yeah, they're pretty cool. These are much more interesting than a normal fish tank as well.
Yeah.
What I normally see with like a fake little rock shit or like something pointless. This is like mainly green. I'll take pictures up in the show notes.
But like,
Cool.
it's a really nice niche model for like what we're talking about with the Earth. That like, when you have a proper biological system that started from the bottom up, right? So you need soil, you need plants, and you need the animals, right? If we don't have the animals, it doesn't fucking work. Now, we looked at 3 tanks. The bottom tank is the biggest one with loads and loads of life forms, and actually the plant growth in there is insane.
Yeah.
Because the life forms give off carbon dioxide, and the plants respond by taking it in. There are estimates that, like, say, for example, the country of Canada, like, the carbon dioxide output from burning fossil fuels is less than the carbon dioxide input from all of the trees alone in the country.
Right, okay.
So plants do thrive and take on carbon dioxide. So actually there's a lot of evidence that the planet is greener now because it's warmer and there's higher levels of carbon dioxide.
More food for them.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. There's more. So rate limiting factors for photosynthesis are sunlight, temperature, carbon dioxide level, water level. So as long as they've got like enough of everything. And it's not that the world's getting hotter and drier, right?
Is that you or the dog?
Yeah, it's the dog. We've got King Charles, so she snores. Because the idea that we've been sold with climate change is like, we're going to turn into a desert, right? But what has actually happened?
It's the opposite.
Yeah, now they've stopped calling it global warming. That's when I was a kid, it was global warming. Climate change. Because we get more storms now.
Changing the narrative.
Yeah, it used to be called global warming.
Wasn't it before something about we're going to hit an ice age if we keep doing what we're doing? Didn't they do the global cooling was even before that?
Pretty
sure.
What's a bigger risk to humanity? Is it that the temperature drops or the temperature goes up? Temperature going down is way worse.
Yeah.
This was one of the things that Kunitz guy actually sells the sort of destroying the narrative of climate change on. It's like, you know how many people die a year of cold? The predictions for the number of people that die
actually probably quite a lot. Elderly, that fucks them up.
Way more, yeah. Like if the temperature goes up, there'll be less cold deaths.
Yeah.
And you use less energy for heating.
Yeah, it makes sense. Loads of old people who can't afford to heat their flats or whatever. They die from it. It's like, because it makes a big difference to them because they're so weak. Yeah. Like, it fucks them up. Whereas, it's a bit hot. It's like, it's fucking hot today.
Yeah.
But that's all right. That was all right. It was nice.
Yeah. I mean, there was one doctor who some woman died of heat stroke and he put climate change on the death certificate. So that was like...
And COVID, probably.
Probably. We heard the one about them swabbing a suicide, like a guy jumped off a building and this nurse was like, what did you swab?
That's fucking amazing. I've seen one where it was a car crash and then it was like, they did it as a COVID. And also like stage 4 cancer patients and stuff like that.
So going back to like what we were saying before about people being... I do think people are way more into it because COVID was shoved into your face. Like the lies and the media narrative was shoved in your face, and then everyone knows it in their heart, whether they want to admit it or not. They know that the vaccine didn't work, lockdown didn't work.
Yeah,
they were lied to, and they went along with it, and they believed it. I think a lot of people are a little bit embarrassed.
Probably some people, yeah, but I think the majority of people just generally still haven't worked it out. I do actually think that. I think the majority, honestly, mate, I think you overestimate people's ability to see this stuff.
I think it's because you're incredibly middle class. If you knew more working class,
not middle class, mate, I'm upper class.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah,
I'm a fucking king. You peasant.
I do think like not like casting aspersions, but perhaps if you mixed in a bit more sort of working class circles, I mean, you probably do with the people you work with on a...
Couldn't work with more working class people.
Yeah, exactly. Those people, like the people you meet at the pub, the people in the hairdressers, the like normal supermarket, like working in retail people, they're all fucking talking about it.
Firstly, I mix with much more normal people than like my voice sounds like. Like I don't actually have like tea with the Queen. And secondly, yeah, like it's true, like the more comfortable people are and the more like normal white collar jobs they had through COVID, the easier and better their life was in that time, and the easier and better their life is as a general rule. The government and the structure benefits them much more generally than it does working class people. So they're more receptive to the government, whereas a lot more working class people get fucked harder and their mums and dads got fucked harder and their mums and dads got fucked harder. So they're more likely to grow up in a situation where like, they're like, yeah, fuck the government, cunts. They're much more willing to understand that like it's bullshit.
Where middle class people are still fairly comfortable. Like if you've got a middle class salary. Like,
yeah, exactly. And they got furloughed. They were like, yeah, pay to stay at home and fucking play video games.
Let's be honest. Like I'm like, yeah, things are tight. I'm not struggling.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I do all right.
Yeah.
And I do, because I do have a job that pays quite well. And then, so the people I've mixed with through work are also similarly in that situation. They're quite like, they can afford to not worry about it and not see it. They literally can.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also just like, it's that trust thing. They're just like, maybe it's also like, you have to deal with a bit more bullshit so your bullshit radar goes off more quickly. Because a lot more like, all the builders and plumbers and fucking electricians and roofers and anyone who I deal with, they'll all be like, yeah, it's fucking bullshit, mate.
Do you know what I think it's more like? It's, you know, like the meme where you have the bell curve, the normal distribution.
Yeah,
and it's like the real, I don't know, it's like badly drawn meme head on the left.
Yeah,
it's like, I don't want anyone to be in charge. And then in the middle, you've got like the normal people who are like, I think the government should be in charge. And at the other end is the guy with the hood, like, no earthly master. So like, there is this kind of weird overlap where you're simple enough to just see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And then as you get more intelligent, you're more easily fooled.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then, like, so you have a lot of people in the middle who are actually reasonably intelligent, but they're way more easy to fool. And then you've got the people on the other end of the spectrum who see through it all because they're actually critical thinkers. But there's this weird synergy between, like, people, you know, like I say, you know, people who aren't perhaps academic and, like, people who are, who can, like, sort of go... There was an old sketch. Yeah. It was the Ronnies and fucking Matey from John Cleese from Monty Python. It's like, I'm upper class and I look down on him, and I'm middle class. I look up to him, but I look down on him. He's like, I'm working class. I know my place. But like nowadays, I feel like the middle class are just so lost and on their own. They don't really fucking... They get fucked in the arse or boat, like, from the top, and then they're loving it.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. You bigot.
I'll drink to that.
But no, it's true. I think they are more easily fooled because it's just like life's easy, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with that. And they're also the ones that are like constantly fucking banging on about climate change and stuff like that. And they're all like
you can afford to...
virtue signal about like, oh, I got an electric car and, you know, I'm only buying organic and I'm doing the... It's like, that's fine, but like, you can afford to do that. If you can't afford to do that, you can't go and buy a fucking 60 grand electric car. You've got your 20-year-old banger, or you haven't got one at all, and you can't afford to go and eat free-range organic fucking wild-fished salmon. You know what I mean? You're just like, well, I just get what feeds the family. Isn't that Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing, isn't it? It's like, where on Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like, I'm not sure which one of the 28 genders I am. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't worry about that.
Careful,
if you're fucking...
you're straying into Andrew Tate territory. He's like, do you think there's a kid in Africa who doesn't know about his gender identity? Do you think the kids in Africa have anxiety?
Probably not.
Well, they don't because they can't afford to.
That's what I'm saying. They're so far from... You have to have the luxury to decide if you're a fucking zebra or not. Like, you just can't...
Unless you're a zebra.
Unless you are a zebra. But I don't think they're worried about it. They're just like, I know my place. But yeah, so if I talk to... I take the Bitcoiners out because a lot of them have the same thoughts. But I would say I'm skeptical about the climate change stuff. Haven't dug into it enough to be like, yeah, definitely, I'm sure it is or it isn't. So I'm just like, it's probably bullshit. That's where I am. But I'm not going to argue the point because it's not my area of expertise. But if I said it to, I would say probably still 95% of people in the UK, they'd be like, you're a fucking idiot.
Well, let's be honest, like, I can't argue the toss. Like, I'm not citing studies here. But, like, let's take one example, okay? So you talk about an electric car, right? Because that's better for the environment, is it?
Well, apparently.
Well, let's put it this way, right? The fuel efficiency of a coal-fired power plant is about 50, maybe 60%. So in terms of the energy that's in the coal and the energy that finally gets extracted and put into the national grid, you're losing half to 40% of it.
Right.
So it's just been wasted as like heat into the atmosphere.
It's inefficient transfer.
Completely inefficient.
Tell me this then, just before we just like a tangent quickly.
Yeah.
Is it true then that energy goes somewhere? So that is just turns into, because energy can't be destroyed. That's right.
Yeah. It just raises
so it's heat.
The heat. Yeah.
Okay. So that inefficiency creates more heat. Is that one of the things that the climatey people are like?
Well, I don't think, because the Earth does radiate heat. So I don't know if the heat that we can produce by the releasing is significant enough. I've never heard anyone suggest that before, that the actual thermal energy release is contributing to climate change. It's all about what we're affecting is the way that energy flows in and out of the planet.
Right.
Because the general effect of climate change, let's be specific, greenhouse gases, was always a bit confusing to me, because it's like sunlight comes in, but then it can't go out. That's the story, is because like you've got a blanket of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So the sunlight comes in, but it can't go out because of the blanket. But like, I always had that question, like,
where's it go then?
How does it get in? If it can't get out, how does it get in? So
one-way mirror.
Yeah. So what the fuck's going on? And then what it is that the infrared light that coming from the sun, when it comes in, is slightly shorter wavelength.
Right.
Okay, so it's kind of like the wiggly waves are closer together. It hits the Earth, it gets absorbed, and it gets re-emitted at slightly lower energy.
Right.
So that's like a more spaced out wave.
Okay.
Because it's now got a slightly different wavelength frequency, it's now absorbed by the carbon dioxide.
Right.
So the carbon dioxide only stops the heat from leaving the Earth. It doesn't stop it from coming in.
Okay.
So what that's doing is changing the rate at which energy in and energy out is balanced. So
they're saying by having more carbon, it's going to block more sun, or they're saying it's like putting a jacket on and then standing in the sun. If it can only come in and it can't go out, then wouldn't the rays coming in, it would be harder for them to come in because you've got more of that thing that's stopping them coming in. So you want to wear a black bomber jacket and stand in the sun? Because that's kind of like, that's a good analogy of it. So, like, if you wore a black bomber jacket and walked out into the blazing midday sun at the moment, you would initially feel a bit of like, oh, the sun's not getting to me. Yeah. Until the coat reaches thermal equilibrium. Oh, so they're saying that coat will stop the rays from coming through, but it will create heat. It stops it from getting out. Because if your skin's bare
Obviously, you can sweat and like sweat, but you've got this jacket on.
Well,
like,
I thought it
the
couldn't
heat's
get out
trapped
anyway.
inside you. Yeah, like, well, the Earth is still now, it naturally reflects some off back into space.
So when you're saying it can't get back out, it can, just not that much.
Theory is, that's my dog. The theory is that greenhouse gases, so carbon dioxide, methane, and to some extent water, sunlight that comes in, hits the surface and reflects back out.
Yeah.
Okay, but it prevents it on its way out, like a one-way mirror, as you said earlier. The reason is because it changes colour slightly by being absorbed and re-emitted. Because you initially asked the question, like, does the output of humans burning coal and stuff actually even have an impact? And actually, it's an interesting question. Like, I've never seen it referred to, but we are actually releasing significant amounts of energy. But I don't know if the energy amounts are as impactful as the simple fact that we're creating this blanket that is working with the percentage of energy of the sun. Right. The sun's our main energy input.
Yeah.
So in terms of, is human energy usage affecting our energy? Well, what's the daily input? If it's like a day's worth of energy that we burn in a year, it's nothing really, is it? So it depends on whether our energy output is significant, comparable to the energy input of the sun. Because you asked me that, like, is the energy that's wasted, like, as heat, contributing to climate change, which is an interesting question and something to put a pin in and look back on. But my point was, coal-fired power stations, of which, like, provide a lot of energy, they're about 50% efficient.
Yeah.
A car, like, petrol car, is way more efficient than that. It's like 75, 80%. Like, some of them are really, really efficient.
Yeah.
So if you charge an electric car, even if it's 100% efficient, it's still only 50% efficient.
Yeah, if it's produced by a coal
Yeah.
car. Yeah, I'm
the carbon per mile.
With you on the electric car stuff. A, they're fucking annoying. They're fucking annoying when you have to charge them. B, the whole cobalt thing and how they're produced, and blah blah blah, and what do you do with the batteries at the end and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of it is produced by coal. So I'm fully on board with, like, electric cars probably are a lot of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was like, it was sold, if you get the electric car, then you can go into London and you don't have to pay the congestion charge and it's going to save you money on this and blah, blah. And it was sold as like, okay, that's the smart thing to do. But so was fucking diesel, like 20 years ago, whatever it was. And then it's like, now diesel's the worst thing. So I guess that was kind of like, you could see that coming, but it doesn't stop the fact that electric cars are fucking fast. The acceleration on them is a right laugh.
I always have this thought, like, what if you had a blank slate? Someone accidentally, Joe Biden falls over, slips on the red button, right?
That's not going to happen.
He slips on it and nukes fire off. Like, we just happened to be in we're on a tour of a bunker at the time, right? Yeah. With a bunch of the world's finest minds and a group of bikini models. So we come out to repopulate the Earth, and then we start from a blank slate, and we were like, from a civil engineering perspective, we can design the Earth from afresh with all the knowledge that we have, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't make like a transport infrastructure that is so diffuse as we have now. You'd create like simple, like, so we'd have like an electrified like main railway, and like we'd have like, you wouldn't need to charge your car. Your car would go on the road, and the road would power your car.
Yeah.
You'd have some kind of smart infrastructure like that.
Yeah, because isn't another massive thing is like energy loss through power lines. And the further the lines are from where you want to charge, you lose a percentage of that power.
Yeah.
So it's actually really fucking inefficient for those reasons as well. It's like, well, how close are you to the source of the power? Because if you're far away, then you're losing a large proportion of what you've created. So even if it's coal and it's 50%, well, what is it by the time it gets to where you want to charge?
Well, I mean, we have actually a decentralized network of power generation stations all around the country that are connected to a national grid. So is that as close?
You still have loss though.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, in terms of the way you could do it, the best way to do it without loss is decentralization, and actually that's what we've got. Like, it's as good as it's going to get. Like, unless you have power generation like in your own neighborhood and stuff, like really micro ones around. I mean, let's be honest. Again, if we're designing the infrastructure from the beginning, what you would have is massive amounts of solar, wind, like every opportunity to just take, like every home would be built with solar panels on the roof, every single one.
Would it though? Like, are they actually, it doesn't make sense necessarily everywhere, because it's like, what do you have to do to make them? What do you do once they're not useful anymore? Where do they go? And how fucking useful are they in England?
Well, let's put it this way. You like
2 hours a day, 3 hours a day?
I say solar panels, like solar panels doesn't necessarily mean photovoltaic cells that turn it into electricity. You would have plenty of those, but you should also be harnessing the energy of sunlight through like hot water systems.
Have you seen those black tubes you get on the roof?
Yeah, that's called a solar panel.
Okay, they're
the
pretty
other
smart.
ones are like what we call a solar panel is actually a photovoltaic.
Right, okay.
Whereas like a solar heating panel with the tubes.
They're pretty smart.
Yeah, you can make them yourself, you know.
Well, I bet you can.
They're really, because they work off basic principles. It's literally
black
a hose
sucks
pipe,
in.
sprayed black with a glass block over it.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would do more shit like that.
You'd use a lot more natural plants and trees. Like, would you build cities? Would there always be a need for cities?
Not now.
No, but like
you could make the argument that there was.
But this is a question that I actually genuinely thought about the other day. Like, if you were doing this, like grand architecture, like we're designing how human, like we've got another planet. Let's perhaps make it less morbid. I do this at work because I keep saying, like, I want to say to people, well, if I die tomorrow, but what I'm saying now is like, if I win the lottery.
Yeah.
So let's transfer it to that more positive spin. So like, instead of winning, like the Earth's been nuked and we've got a new planet and we've got a complete plan of how to set up this thing.
Right.
You use like drones, like a lot of robot contractors to just build everything. Mm-hmm. And you'd have like, you'd always have wildlife and nature and stuff like that. Like, I think this is if I was planning it, you wouldn't damage the ecosystem. You'd work in ways.
Work within it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
Use trees for shade, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All that shit.
Yeah.
It's much cooler when you have trees around.
Well, yeah, my car sits out there on the road. You go and get in your fucking car and it's like, it's an oven in there.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, like, why isn't there an avenue of trees down here? Like, because what they're doing is capturing carbon, producing wood, you know.
And also places look much nicer.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when you have like those fucking beautiful houses in like rainforesty type of areas, you're just like, this is just sick. It just feels nice being around it.
Whereas we've got to a state where we're so het up with historical like records and like, well, I own this piece of land and or you can't build on that, it's Crown Estate that belongs to the king.
Yeah, fuck the king.
No, that's the designated nature reserve. You can't build there. Oh, that's an industrialized city centre. That's always going to be that way. Like, we've got to a point where we've got so far down a road that we can't get off it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like we've just gone, we've missed our junction and we're now just stuck on this fucking traffic jam with no way to get out.
Yeah, but your point was about cities. But the cities were the way they were and where they were for a reason because of distribution.
And they've naturally developed.
Yeah, but now, theoretically, if you have the internet and information can travel as it can and people can like collaborate as they can, blah, 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 you sort of like, you know, like people move out of the cities more now because you just could get more shit done quicker and connect with more people and everything was in the cities. But now it's like, you fucking basically do everything anyway. And who wants to be in a city because it's shit?
Well, that's what I thought this the other day. Like, if I was doing this godlike civil engineering project, I think there would be a desire for cities for that social element, for the bars and the clubs and, you know, like the hubbub and the bustle of human life. So, but if I was this godlike, you know, terraformer, I wouldn't build a city in the places where they reside now, like Paris and London. They're right on big major rivers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use that valuable real estate for a fucking city. I'd put the city like in just some fucking landlocked area, like that would be reliant on shit coming in because it has no production.
It's got to come in anyway.
Yeah. I'd put it, you know, you'd put a fucking city in like the Highlands or somewhere like where it was kind of useless, the land.
I get what you mean. You're still going to want people to interact, but I guess a city then maybe wouldn't be. That's not where like the industry is. It's not like industrial estates and like necessarily have all the workers there and people living and working there. Maybe the cities would be more of a place where people like go to like spend time to enjoy themselves, and like it's more art and more music and culture and stuff like that, rather than like massive fucking grey office blocks with little cubicles with people sat in there doing pointless shit. Like that, there'd be less of that stuff.
I think the grey office blocks will still exist, but like they'll probably be like tower block kind of things. But like, consider like, let's go like 100 or 300 years into the future. Like all of the construction work and manual labour is done automated now. Right, so there's no manual labour work.
I reckon there will be. You're still going to need like a plumber.
You can 3D print a building out of concrete. Why are you going to need construction?
Because you still need people to fix the old shit. You're still going to need like an expert who's like, who did this fucking wiring?
Yeah, but when you've got like literally an android with a general artificial intelligence that can wire it twice as fast as a human can, like in the middle of the night, doesn't complain.
I reckon we overestimate like how useless humans are going to be.
At some point, though.
Maybe at some point, yeah, sure.
At some point, let's go. We're full in the Arthur C. Clarke sci-fi level, where what's the saying? Any technology suitably advanced is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
So human beings, as long as we don't wipe each other out with a nuclear war started by President Joe Biden over Ukraine, falling over onto the nuclear button,
falling over his son's crack pipe.
Oh my God, have you seen any of that shit?
It's fucked up.
Yeah, I'd hang out with him though. Do you know what? All of the cunty politicians, they're much more fun than I'd much rather hang out with Boris Johnson than Jeremy Corbyn. Do you know what I mean? Which one do you want? Be snorting coke off the back of like number 10 toilets with Boris having a bottle of bubbly, or would you like a tour of Corbyn's allotment?
Good point.
Or like, well, how would he party? He'd be like, he'd have some IPAs. He looks like an IPA. Of course you do. There was two like middle-aged skaters, like at the park the other day, and they literally I just guys, are you seriously drinking IPAs?
What's wrong with an IPA?
But it's a stereotype, it's a trope of the middle-aged skater.
Is it?
Like Vans, check plaid shirt, and a can of IPA.
Yeah.
they did go, oh shit, yeah.
Were they in like funky little cans?
Yes, the little Coke can ones, but they're like blue.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's some cool art. Or something there's some cool art on some of them. It's like a hipster thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a craft beer, but they are nice.
Someone, I can't remember what it was some conversation, but they were like, oh, that's pretentious. I was like, dude, we're riding bikes doing tricks. We are pretentious. That is exactly what this is. So all of that shit, skating, BMXing, it's all about looking good. Like, you don't go out there without thinking about what you look like or what you're wearing, what you're drinking. I believe in the greenhouse effect. I believe it's like putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere does change the temperature. I'm just not convinced that it's necessarily a problem.
Right.
I'm not convinced that it won't actually turn out to be beneficial. Like, let's put it this way. I was against Brexit, right? I was against it. But after seeing what happened in Europe, I was kind of glad during the COVID time that we weren't a member of the EU.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, okay, it might have been the right decision for the wrong reason.
Right.
And I feel like that with climate change. Like, yeah, we are pumping carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but there's nothing to say it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
It might actually be fucking spot on.
More plants.
Yeah.
Nice warm weather.
Yeah. Less need for energy. Like, we're not heating it as much. I mean, we might see more extreme weather.
Yeah.
But then, like, they have fucked with the data. And, like regardless of whether it's true or not, like, I don't know. And I don't think they do.
Right.
Mate, they can't model the weather more than 5 days.
True.
You know what I mean? The weather forecast is a bit of a joke. Like you go any long term.
Met Office is the best one.
Yeah, you go past a week and it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's stuff.
Like, but they tell you what the weather's going to be like in 50 years. Yeah. How long's this Earth been around? 4 billion years. That's 4,000 million years.
It's only 4 billion years?
Yeah, the Earth.
Why do I thought it was like 6 billion or something?
No, it's 4.
Okay.
Like I say it, like I know exactly 3.8. I don't know what it is, but like I know it's roughly on that level. Yeah, but like the cycles that we're talking about, it's like a gnat suddenly seeing the sky going dark and going, holy fuck. And you being a human just being like, why is that gnat freaking out at sunset?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just because you have a longer perspective of the cycles. And we're talking about cycles that are 40,000 years in length.
Yeah.
Right? So, not only that, there is ice core samples and historical records. As I mentioned earlier, there are periods where they've taken them out of graphs. Right? And
taken the core samples out because they're not convenient.
The core samples
for the
show the temperature spikes globally for periods like the late medieval warm period and the Roman warm period. They take them out of graphs.
Okay.
Because if they leave them in,
then it looks cool now.
It looks like we're just having another one of those little bumps.
And do those bumps correspond in any sort of flow? You know, like you're talking about cycles. Does it kind of ebb and flow and it's like hotter than colder than hotter than colder? And is it a natural part of that?
It's not a predictable cycle.
Okay, fine. It's just like shit does stuff and we don't really know why, but it changes.
Well, I mean, it is complicated. Like the Earth has been frozen over more than once.
Yeah.
Like the times that we've had multiple ice ages.
We'd be proper fucked if that happened.
Oh, yeah.
Proper fucked.
Well, like the whole Younger Dryas impact theory, prior to the impact, it was an ice age, like a mini ice age. And there's evidence that the breeding pairs of humans got down to as low as 1 to 12,000 pairs.
Yeah, that's very low.
So that's like a minimum population of 2,000 people.
Yeah.
To a maximum of like 25.
Yeah. Klaus Schwab would be coming in his little... He doesn't even wear pants, does he? His little schmuck.
Spacesuit. There's a man that's like... I mean, I don't think he's the worst person in the world. I think he's quite dumb because he's just saying everything he's doing out loud.
Yeah.
I think the real evil are you kind of like George Soros.
Yeah.
You're even your Bill Gates. It's like I don't know. Like it's hard to know if they are truly evil. Well, here's one.
He seems like a cunt. I look at him and I go,
satanic sex cult.
Right.
What do you think? Like the idea that they are literally Satan worshipping Moloch, believing like. Do you buy into that? Like the super
the shit
satanic
we've covered in this episode.
But I'm getting to the point where like
I believe. Yeah, I know it's mental because the craziest shit starts to the craziest shit that people would be like fuck off. It starts to be like, well, yeah. Right. Do I believe that? Is your question?
Well, let me put it this way, right?
I don't not believe it.
Yeah. One thing that's really freaked me out over the last few years is that I used to, and this is genuinely like concerning to me and freaked me out and made me think like the world is so fucked up. I used to think Alex Jones was a joke. I used to think he was an idiot and a joke, right? I literally today posted a video of potentially presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy going, so they put atrazine in the water with these frogs and like 30% of them, he's got a weird voice.
Yeah, what happened to his voice?
He's got like spasmodic voices and I don't know what it's called. Like it's something in his vocal cords, they don't work very well.
No, I get that.
Just a birth defect, I think.
Because someone said to me it was vaccine injury and I was like, oh, I don't know.
I don't think that's true. I think that's just like some like legend or lore.
Yeah, well that's why I said I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember that. Turn the frogs gay.
But yeah, so like RFK's talking about like the study, and it's like, oh, that's what Alex Jones was talking about. So I published Alex Jones straight after that video clip of RFK saying the atrazine makes the frogs turn into female. There are so many things that Alex Jones has said that you're like, what the fuck is he on about? That's the fucking island where they take these kids and they fuck them on the kid fuck island. And you're like, all right, calm down, psycho. You know, me in like 2019 listening to Alex Jones laughing at him thinking he's a moron. Me in 2023 replaying those conversations going, right, okay, oh shit, everything he's saying is true.
Well, not everything he says, but
everything he says is true except Sandy Hook. I'm literally going to go that far that he is right about.
What about where he like starts talking about interdimensional beings that go through these 4 levels, and that's the good and the evil?
Well, you want some DMT? I'm tempted. I'm even down with that. Like, it was Graham Hancock who sold me on that when he's talking about, you know, mapping the spirit realm. I'm like, I wonder. I'd love it for it to be true that there is higher existence, higher dimensions.
I've talked to you about this before, and you're like, "That's bullshit." If you can't measure,
I do think it's bullshit.
No, because you always go, "If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist." And I always say to you, "Well, how do you know that how you're measuring it is the only way to measure things? How do you know?" Well, because it's all we've got. It's like, well, it's all we've got. Doesn't mean.
Okay, you misunderstand me. If I'm beaming a signal at you, right, you can detect it.
What do you mean? If you're beaming a signal at me, well, it depends. I can't always detect it.
Right. If there's another realm or which we can interact with spirits or, you know, with godlike beings, or if there's some kind of other realm, right, there must be a way for us to connect with that other realm. If we cannot connect with it, there's no point talking about it. It's like, so my analogy is, if I told you I had an invisible alien friend who no one else can see, not even me, I don't even know when he's here. It's like, how do you know he exists? Well, I don't. Right, so does he exist? Well, it doesn't even matter if he does, because it's all bullshit.
Right.
If I can't see him, I can't hear him, I can't speak to him, like, just because I'm saying he exists.
Then even if he does exist, you're saying he's irrelevant, because, fine, I'll buy that.
Okay, so if there's another realm, but there is no interaction between that realm and our realm, doesn't fucking matter, because there's no interaction between that realm and our realm.
But how do you know there is an interaction?
Well, so what you're saying is, yes, there could be interaction. So if there is interaction, that means something from their realm can transmit information to our realm. Or there is some pathway, or there is some mechanism by which information can travel from one realm to the other, or even just from their realm to ours. It can just be one way. It doesn't need to be a two-way connection.
Yeah, with you so far.
Right. The only way that this woo-woo magical idea of these spirit worlds is manifested is that connection is somehow inconsistent.
Why?
Well, because if it was consistent, right, if there was a consistent way of connecting, like you always do, the X, Y, Z, and you can receive the signal. Yeah?
But how do you know they might be inconsistently sending signals, so you can do something consistently to try and pick up those signals, but they're not necessarily there because it's a one-way system. Just because you can't consistently get the same result, it doesn't mean that it's that you're doing it differently or wrong. It could be that things have changed. Like if you go out fishing, I cast the line exactly the same as I did before, got the same bait, I'm in the same spot, cast it out. Yesterday I caught fucking loads of fish, so there aren't any. Right, fish don't exist. Same thing.
Well, are we talking still on the DMT spirit realm or just other planes of reality?
We're talking in general, but like that could be a reasonable argument that maybe there is something, because like when they talk about there's consistent theme of something that's seen or understood from taking this, but then it's like you would say, yeah, well, you can't measure it, so you can't prove it.
So my argument, I guess, is that physical phenomena in this world is consistent. So anything like a ghost or a spirit world, by the rules of this world where things are consistent, like the sun always shines and like the light always travels in straight lines, like their world is deliberate, and so it's not a natural transfer of information, and therefore so it's hard to argue against that.
I don't think you can argue with it.
But like,
I don't think you can argue it because you're just saying I can't measure it, therefore it's not true.
Basically, what if there were aliens on Mars and then there's aliens in the other dimension?
Right.
Okay. So we've got two examples. Now, the aliens on Mars are within our realms of physics, right? So there's consistency of rules around our relationship to them.
Is there?
Well, yeah, because we can use a telescope to look at Mars, and if they've got a base there, they have to hide it, yeah?
But what if we can't measure them with eyesight? What if they live in...
Well, look,
That's what my point is.
If there were aliens on Mars, there would... We could use ways. We could send probes. We could go. If we could physically go there, like there are things that we could do to investigate the presence of that thing.
And if it fit within our narrative of what we can see and what we consider to be life, then we would say that's an alien.
Yeah.
And if it didn't fit within our narrow view of what we believe we know, then we don't know, and we would say no, there isn't because we can't see it.
But if there is an active, intelligent life form, then it could potentially hide, and it could also choose to send us signals at random.
Yeah.
Okay. But the existence of the realm and the crossover of the realm, that's not under the control of the aliens, right? That's just there.
Right.
So anything where any other kind of phenomena that exists in our world, like so ghosts, like other realmly like aliens, they must have some way of coming in and going back. So there must be some interaction and some connectivity between the two worlds. And we should be able to do something to reach them if they can do something to reach us.
Right.
And it should be some kind of repeatable physical phenomena that links to something. And we don't have any evidence of anything. There is unknown things. There definitely are unknown things like dark gravity, dark energy.
Right.
But I don't know. I actually, the universe teaches us things through physical laws and physical kind of generalities. Okay? And one of the things that the universe is telling you is you are on your own. As a species, humans could repopulate this galaxy or populate this galaxy with copies of ourselves. It wouldn't take that much effort. We could send out seeding ships with drones, just go through space, right? They've just got robots on board with genetic material. They find a suitable planet and they land, and then they hatch out a load of embryo, they fertilize sperm and eggs, and they have them implanted in artificial embryos. They come out, there's androids, parents that raise them as the first generation, instruct them, teach them language, teach them and all this stuff, raise a generation of kids on a planet who then take over the planet. The ship basically is their home, and they've got instructions and materials and data, and they build a fucking empire on this planet. And we send out hundreds of thousands of these things, right? And we have an entire galaxy populated with humans on every habitable planet.
Right.
They still can't communicate with each other.
Yeah.
The whole Star Wars Galactic Empire thing.
Because of the speed of light.
Speed of light. Speed of light, as we know it now, is a fundamental constraint of the universe. The fastest anything can travel is at the speed of light. So,
what about black holes?
Well, flying into a black hole is going to collapse you. Yeah, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, travel, but let's stick within the confines of reality as we know it at the moment, because that would be physics that doesn't yet exist. But using what we know about physics, which is quite a lot, we could fill up the galaxy with life forms, but we would still, even if you just wanted to send a message, right? The nearest star to us now is 1,000 light years. So you send a message, and it takes 1,000 years to get there, and it takes 1,000 years to get back. So that's 2,000 years for a piece of information exchange.
Yeah.
Right? you're not connecting with these people. You're not sending them any shit. You're not trading with them. Unless you can literally do portal jumps, like the kind of bending of space-time thing that you're alluding to via black holes, you're alone.
Unless you can do that. But that's my point, is that...
Yeah.
My point is, just because it's something that we can't do or we can't measure doesn't mean it's not possible. And therefore, it is possible that there's interdimensional beings, and it is possible that there is travel that's faster than the speed of light. It's just that we can't do it. And just like I can get in my car and I can go and drive 100 miles in like a few hours, and an ant can't, doesn't mean it's not possible, just they can't fucking do it. Because they're an ant and I'm a human.
Yeah, but there was never a physical constraint from the ant travelling at 100 miles an hour. An ant can walk on a train and travel at 100 miles an hour. The ant doesn't have the ability to build the train. Okay, but there's no physical barrier and constraint. Like this
but they don't understand. They don't have the technology or knowledge of knowing how to do it.
Whether they understand it or not, it doesn't matter. Like there was no restriction to an ant traveling at 100 miles an hour. No, we don't fully understand black holes, but what we do understand, and this is a lot of people really don't understand Einstein's work.
Yeah, I really don't understand it. How many people fucking really understand it?
Yeah, I think people who think they understand it don't understand it. I don't understand it. Einstein's work is about, it opens the door to the study of empty space.
Right.
Right? So, you can take a glass bowl full of milk and pour the milk away, right? Wash it out because it'll get all cloudy and shit. Right? And then you could suck all the air out. There's still something in there.
Right.
Even in a vacuum, there's something in there.
Yeah.
There's space.
Yeah.
It might have no air particles in it, but it's not nothing.
Yeah.
It's something. It's empty space. So this is a thought I've had since a kid. Like an empty space, right? As we know it now, empty space is stretching. So the material that space is made out of is definitely stretching.
Okay.
And one of the weird things that quantum mechanics is telling us, normally when you stretch a material, it gets thinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you take a plastic bag, you stretch it, it's going to kind of get thinner.
Yeah.
You're going to half the density of the material as you pull the length.
And eventually it snaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Space is weird that when you stretch it, it stays the same.
Oh, okay.
So it the energy density of space stays constant as it expands, which is kind of why, dark energy.
Is that for why they say it's forever expanding? Because there's no, if I forever expanded a plastic bag, it's going to rip. You're done. Right. Now you got 2 bits of plastic bag. But they say it's forever expanding. Is that the reason? Because it's consistent?
Well, there's actually a lot of evidence coming out of the James Webb telescope recently that the age of the universe may potentially be a lot older than we think, because they're using the telescope to look at 14 billion light years away, which the light from that should be coming from, if the galaxy is 14 billion, if the universe, is 14 billion years old, then 14 billion years away, you'll be seeing light from the start of time.
Right.
And they're looking at it through James Webb telescope and they're seeing galaxies. And they're like, well, that's not right. So it's suggesting that the universe is older than it is. One of the things they've come across recently is that the universe is accelerating in its expansion. So one of the greatest achievements of humanity and science is Hubble's constant.
Mm-hmm.
Hubble, apparently a terrible human being, like a proper pipe-smoking misogynist who... He did some weird mapping, so he was able to work out the distance of certain stars, and he knew exactly what kind of stars they were, so he knew how bright they were. So what he could do is he could look at a star and he'd go, oh, is that one of them? I know how bright that is. I can work out how far away it is.
Okay.
So he's gone around the sky and he's looked at all these different bits of galaxies and stars. He's like, I know how far away all of them are. And then he's measured them. And they can also, by measuring their colour shift, like a race car goes, meow.
Yeah.
There's a change in that pitch as it goes past you. It's like, meow.
Yeah.
That pitch change can be measured and to tell you whether it's moving towards you or away from you.
Yeah.
So he looked at the distances of all these galaxies, and he looked at the speed at which they were moving, and he found out most of them are moving away.
But consistently.
The further away they are, the faster they were moving.
Oh, okay.
So by like mapping them on a graph, it paints a fucking straight line. And the line is like 70 megaparsecs per million kilometers or something like that.
Okay.
So, I don't know, but like every million kilometers, the speed of recession is 70.
Is that why people say that over time there's less order?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely is spreading. But like, so the universe is spreading out. But what's happening is, like, when they measured it, it was like 70, right? It was the number. It's stretching faster. So actually, if you consider that pattern, what if it stretched slower in the beginning? Like, instead of, because we used to think it was just consistent stretching.
Mm.
So we use that consistent stretch to trace it back to this time 14 billion years ago.
Yeah.
But it's James Webb telescope's now producing evidence that that's not right. It should be longer. So what is it? Well, maybe that stretch time isn't consistent. Well, that's not an unreasonable expectation, considering that recently we found that the stretch is speeding up.
Wouldn't that happen with any explosion? Wouldn't the shrapnel start to go faster as it expands out, as it explodes out?
No, with a bomb, you'd expect it to slow down because there's an initial release of kinetic energy.
Which is that the most powerful? That's the fastest.
Well, what you've got is a rapid expansion of gas as it reacts. But then as any particles fly away in a normal explosion, you've got air resistance, but you've also got like attractive forces between particles and stuff like that. But like you would expect things to slow down.
I was just thinking whether that's just like a natural thing that...
This is one, I love talking about this, but like it always blows everyone's minds and no one ever gets it, right? Everyone assumes when they think about the Big Bang, what do you think of? Like, think of the moment of creation. What do you see in your mind?
Genuinely, I haven't really thought about it.
Really?
Yeah.
So, like, I still see it, and I know, even though I know it's wrong, I see a pin drop of light, like a little spot that just suddenly expands into almost like a firework, like you see those rocket spheres, like, and then it just goes, whoosh, and it's like all glowing and white, and it expands and whoosh, completely wrong. Because what you're suggesting is that there's a singularity, a single point of all the stuff in the universe compressed, and it's spreading out.
Right.
Part of the reason why we think of that is because when scientists talk about it, like, in the first, 10 to the 9 seconds, the entire observable universe was the size of a basketball. Right now, we live in a sphere, right? We are in the center of a sphere. The sphere is 14 billion light years. Well, that's what we think. Current estimates, right?
Right.
14 billion light years in radius. So we're in the middle. We've got a line that's 14 billion light years to one side, but then it goes up and down and it goes all around us to make a sphere. So we're in this 28 billion across sphere.
Yeah.
What is that? It's everything we can see.
Okay.
It's everything we can see because the light has had enough time to get to us. Right? Anything that's 15 billion years away, the light won't get here yet for another billion years.
So it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, we just can't observe it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We can't observe it, right? But, so we live in this sphere. Anything outside of it is kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like, it might as well fuck off because it can't, even the gravitational influence travels at the speed of light. So none of it has any impact on us.
Right.
Right? For us, it doesn't exist. But say there's another planet that's like, I don't know, 10 billion light years away from us. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a lot. I say our nearest one is 1,000 light years, 10 billion light years away. It could be in another galaxy. We assume that they have the same observable universe. They have a 14 billion light year sphere around them.
Right.
So now you've got like a pair of boobies.
Yeah.
Big round boobies that kind of overlap a little bit in the middle.
Cleavage.
We're in one sphere. They're in another sphere that's kind of joined on like a dumbbell or something like that. There could be another planet on them that's also like 10 billion light years along.
So it could be like a bubble bath.
Yeah. And that's what the universe is like. It's like a load of foam, a constant foam of just everyone's in their own sphere within their own cosmic particle horizon, their own 14 billion light year circle, and they're just all overlapping. But they go on forever. They never stop.
Mm.
Now, like mathematicians might describe it as a manifold, like a surface where they all kind of curve round in a donut shape. So it continues on forever, essentially, and there's no end or beginning to it. But
so there's multiple universes with multiple galaxies within.
Yeah, and we're crossing over more and more every day.
Do you know what it made me think when you were just talking about we're within our own, you didn't say galaxy, you said like sphere, we have our own atmosphere and our own this and blah, blah, blah. I was thinking, well, within that universe and within that galaxy and within that planet, there are then beings that live within their own sphere. We live within our own bubbles as well of like what we see and how we see it and how we think and blah, blah, blah. So maybe it's just like that all the way down, all the way up and all the way down. It's just bubbles.
Yeah, just constantly.
Fucking weird when you think about it like that.
So, but like when I said, you imagine this initial pinball of light, well, it's bullshit because the universe is infinite now. So it was infinite in the past. Like, this was actually a GCSE exam question for physics, GCSE. And the question was, describe the universe in its early state, like shortly after the Big Bang. If you said it was small, you got marked down because it wasn't small. It was infinite. Do you know what you had to write? Like, that's what I taught my students was literally the Big Bang Theory, the song from the fucking TV show. And literally they would write the whole universe is in a hot, dense state. Right? And they would get the full marks for that. Because if the universe right now is infinite but spread out, if you play the video backwards, where it's all stretching and it's like, at the moment, everything's spreading out from each other. Play it backwards. What you've got is everything coming closer together, coming in together, but it's still infinite. And it's always going to be infinite. So as it gets closer together, all the stars get closer together, and you end up with everything being packed together into one space. But it's still infinite, but it's infinitely dense.
Right. I get what you mean. So can it go infinitely both ways?
Yeah, I mean, it's fucked up. Like, when you start thinking about
Is that what that whole quantum shit is about?
No, quantum is quite different. Like, what we're talking about is kind of...
What I'm saying about the size, like as in quantum is smaller. It's like atom is way smaller than atom. Quantum stuff is smaller.
Yeah, well, the word quantum means number, like quantity.
Right.
Quantum mechanics is you're working with the smallest quantities, the smallest indexes. And it kind of goes back to the Greek tradition when I think it's Aristotle invented the idea of atoms. He's like, look, there must be the smallest piece. And that's the same with quantum mechanics. There must be a smallest length, smallest unit of time, where you could theoretically subdivide it smaller, but it doesn't make sense because nothing is that small or nothing is that quick.
Okay.
So there is the smallest unit.
But that just made me think of it when you're saying about like the universe, it can be
infinitely dense.
Infinitely dense, yeah. But then not touching.
Beyond touching.
Yeah.
Everything's squished down into the same. What happens is that level is we don't understand the physics at that level because they break down.
Right.
Right. So the star, the sun, we understand the physics of that. It's really dense, but we understand it. It's still atoms, nucleons. It's hydrogen fusing to form helium, helium forming lithium, etc. The next level up, where you've got like a big star that collapses, it forms this weird thing called a neutron star. Now, a neutron star is kind of like a giant atom.
Right.
Where it's like, it's as dense as an atom, but it's massive. And even in the middle of that, you've got like the things that make up the neutrons and the protons, the quarks, are kind of like, they're not stuck together in threes. They should be like bound together in little threes. But when their forces break down, like, there's just like this gloopy soup of quarks and gluons where they're, and we're kind of like, well, we think we understand that. But then when you get to a black hole, all bets are off because it's beyond our understanding. It's like, well, we don't know what's going on.
What will it take to understand? We just some breakthrough.
Black holes are so freaky. Like, the simplest way I can explain it is if, the rubber sheet idea. Have you seen that?
Like if you have a ball, it will soak into the center.
So you might see a model, like, there's a great video on YouTube. I recommend it. Like, if you do gravity, I don't know, you'll see this professor, he's got this big blue hoop, like, sheet of spandex, and he drops a weight in the middle, and it bends the sheet, and he throws a load of marbles around, and go around in an orbit. Because this is why planet's orbit because the space that they travel through is bent. And he grabs like a handful of marbles in each direction and they kind of knock each other out. They all end up going one way. It's a great, great, great video, right? So normal mass, like a planet or a star, kind of bends the sheet a little bit, bends it, makes a dip in it. Black hole is not like a bend in space and a bend in reality. It's like you take a little piece of it and you pull it to the moon.
Right.
And then you keep going and never stop.
Okay. Like a riptide bit of space.
It's a rip in space. Yeah. It's like, a star will bend space to make a nice curve or a hill. But a black hole is kind of a fucking, and it never ending.
A vacuum of.
Yeah. It's like a well that never stops going. It's just constant and eternal and always getting narrower and narrower and narrower and like never stops. So we don't really understand it. We don't fucking get it. But bizarrely, the electron's kind of a bit like that as well. And that's a normal particle that's made up, like most of this room is made up of. Physics is fucked.
What rip?
Let's get another one. Yeah, come on. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, physics is fucked, but you know what else is the fucking bullshit about climate change, because I found it whilst we were taking that short break. A new study reports that the Antarctic ice shelf area has actually grown by 5,305 square kilometres between 2009 and 2019.
Dum dum dum. Is it bullshit? Polar bears dying? The polar bear's not dying?
I swear I've seen other things that polar bear numbers have actually increased.
They always show that like footage of a polar bear
just trapped on the ice,
and it looks fucked. It looks like all skinny and like it looks all like it hasn't had a shower in a week. Just looks a bit fucked.
They never pushed a load of lemmings off a cliff, mate. You know about that?
What do you mean?
Do you know the idea that lemmings commit suicide?
Yeah.
Right? That's not true.
Oh.
Right? Despite what you may have seen, I don't know, you're not old enough to have played the computer game Lemmings, are you?
No.
Oh no. Great game. Right? People of my generation love that shit. But the idea was that lemmings were suicidal. Mm-hmm. They would just walk off a cliff. Because in the 1920s and 1930s, or somewhere around then, it was a Disney film, like a nature film, and they filmed lemmings jumping off a cliff. They were throwing them off. They were forcing them to go off the cliff. They made it all up.
What, so Disney made a real documentary?
Real life animal documentary in like the 20s or 30s.
And they were throwing them off?
They were like forcing them to go off the cliff.
Is Disney a pedo ring that forces lemmings off?
There's been some... I've not really followed the Disney thing. But this like... I don't know. I don't go down. Do you know what? We touched on this earlier. The satanic sex cult.
Yeah, let's come back to that.
Right. And then I spoke about Alex Jones. Yeah. Yeah. I do think he's been driven insane. I think the things he's seen, because he went into Bohemian Grove. Do you know this one?
Yeah, I saw this.
So he actually goes down there, sneaks into this like camp where a lot of rich and famous people go, and he films the video of them burning, like not a real body, but an effigy in sacrifice to Moloch, the owl god.
Yeah.
Like that is, I'm not saying that all the people that are there are like into Satan.
Yeah.
But the dude who's organising it, he's not just like, oh yeah, it's just like a bit of fun, isn't it? Why do you need to do that? Well, it's just tradition. But who invented that tradition? I don't know. Like someone had to put that tradition.
Yeah, but what is the significant? I know it's weird. Like you have a load of people that are doing what they're doing. It's just fucking weird, right? I get that. But like, what is Moloch the owl?
Well, there's loads of different things, and there's like Moloch, Baphomet. Like the idea that there are some group that are kind of driven by some kind of satanic belief, and like whether God or Satan exists, like regardless, is that if you think of like Anton LaVey, kind of the Church of Satanism, all that kind of satanic Bibles and those kind of things, they're not actually about worshipping Satan. They're more like about man is God.
Right.
Right? Because there is no God, and thou shalt do what thou willst. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no good, there is no evil. There is only the universe as it exists, and thou shalt do as thou willst.
But why whilst thy stand around burning an effigy of a child while worshipping an owl? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, that's a fucking great question. You know, like, I don't know. Let's be honest. I've pushed a Grundon bin around a festival campsite, banging on it in a rhythmic fashion, like some kind of primal caveman. And I was hypnotized and I was lost in the trance. I was gone. Like, there was a moment when I was like,
fucking hell.
What is going on? As I pushed the bin round the corner, like, don't do it. Like, there is a part of your human brain that can switch off. Like, when you're in a big crowd, just cheering, shouting, like, grab his dick and twist it. And
this is what you do at festivals. It's amazing.
Mate, the bin jousting at Bloodstock is insane.
Bin jousting?
Yeah, so what... So what they do is, you know, the big wheelie bins, the ones with the lids on them.
Yeah.
Right? They get a couple of those. So, you know, I said, like, I was getting tribal. I kind of went to watch the bin jousting. The jousting is they take two bins, people push them, someone gets on top, they push them together, and they smash into each other, and whoever's left on top of the bin at the end, the combined bins, is the winner.
Amazing.
Right? So, and people should have special catchphrases that they shout, like, especially when two men are wrestling, they shout, suck his dick, grab his dick and twist it. It's just...
This is a metal...
Yeah.
That's what you guys get up to.
But it's like, people have, like, broken their foot because their foot got crushed in between the bins, or people fell off and banged their heads. But, like, the organisers, like, you often see the security, like, come on, no. And then the guy who's leading it, this guy called Top Hat, he'll just sort of he will actually mediate, because the crowd is feral. The crowd, like, there's about 150 of us, and there's like 3 security guards.
Yeah.
Like, and we're all like, well, we want to play bin jousting.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can't. And then, but this guy Top Hat's like, no, come on, guys. Like, he leads it, he organises it, and he actually, like, fucking works with them.
De-escalates.
Like, yeah, but, like, basically what the game is, they'll say, like, you can't do it. It's like, okay, we'll move on. They're like, no, you can't move on. He's like, yeah, we're going to move on. All right, we'll stop now. Everyone's off. And then they just march off to another side and do it again somewhere else. But, they just move them around, and then it's just bizarre.
So your point is that evolves into Moloch the Owl and burning an effigy.
I mean, it's very easy to get sucked into tribalistic things, you know.
Yeah.
If you're having a few drinks and then you're around, I don't know what, there's something about being around a fire as well.
Yeah.
Like, you're just kind of like, I'm thinking you could be easily converted. Like, I think there's a lot of people that could just go along with it. Like, yeah, this is cool. But I reckon there's someone that's arranging it, planning it.
Yeah, of course there is. But where does that, like, that's weird, right? Like, I listen to that and I go, whoever does that's fucking weird. I'm talking about the bins here. Moloch the Owl's cool, but the bins. But where does that lead into the satanic ritual shit? Like, a load of people like say, like, right, oh, it's all about humiliating people.
I can tie this up.
Go on. Should we tie it up and then finish?
So, like, what I'm saying, you know, like, I do think there is some weird satanic leadership cult, but I don't think they're all in it. But I do think there is a couple of people like Top Hat who are the ringleaders who truly believe in it. Like, he organises the whole fucking thing. It all happens because of him.
His life is bin jousting.
It is. He sells merch.
Amazing.
But, like, everyone else just, like, I don't know, gets involved with it because it's just the thing to do when you're there. And I think that's what a lot of world leaders, they're just like, yeah, well, we go to the thing, we worship. It's like going to church, I don't know.
What is it though? Because then it's like, where does it get to this weird, like, are they actually murdering kids and doing all this like weird shit? Like, because that's what, you're saying Alex Jones got everything right. That's where I was like, he talks about these interdimensional vampires who go through the 4 dimensions, and there's good versus evil, and they feed on the blood of children. And the good wins in the end, but we're not good at organising. Evil's very good at organising. We can't be bothered until we absolutely need to, and then good is stronger than evil and it defeats it, and blah, blah. And he was like talking about all this stuff, and I was like, well, I don't know, but that sounds...
plot of a cheap James Cameron movie.
Sounds carnage. I'm not saying it's not right. Could be. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think we could say everything he says is right, because it's like, I don't know that I can prove that.
Well, maybe I've not gone this deep down. Like, I've let's be honest, I've skimmed the surface with him. I've never gone on InfoWars.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, until very recently, I've not actually been out. Like, I remember when he was on Rogan, I couldn't listen to it.
Yeah, because it's too much.
It was too much. I made it like 20 minutes in. But when I listened to it recently, I got through the whole thing. But I haven't really gone back. And I mean, it's kind of a sad, tragic figure. Like the way they have actually just taken him down now. Like they found a way to sue him for like $1 billion.
Yeah, they fucked him.
Kind of thrown in jail. Like Julian Assange.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Like, there is clear suppression of free speech voices, like the attack on people like Joe Rogan, Russell Brand. I think it's all coming down though. I do think
you feel positive. You think,
I think people are waking up. I do.
Maybe.
I think that's the like positive note is that we are all becoming conspiracy theorists.
No, we are all in this room.
No. I do think a lot more people than you would expect start to know a lot of this shit now. They've had to, because they wanted, a lot of people are curious about COVID or the vaccine. Like Carol Vorderman is on BBC TV pointing out that Rishi Sunak actually held stock shares and stood to benefit off of like mandatory vaccinations.
Right.
Right, and that might represent a conflict of interest in terms of who decides. You might do, yeah. Do you know what I mean? We have Liz Truss getting her largest campaign donation in her run-up for Prime Minister was from the wife of an energy company CEO. And what was her main thing that she did in 40 days? She raised the price of energy. So she got given a load of money by an energy company, who took power and raised the energy prices. I don't see a conflict of interest there, do you? There's no possible... I mean, that's not corruption.
No, that's all right.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fucked.
So they're all cunts.
Yeah.
What do we end it on? Positive note?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a positive note, and I fucking derailed that.
You went all dark.
I did.
You went white pill, black pill, quick.
It was easily done. I do think that. Like, I do swing from the, like, hope to despair when I think about human... Like, I said to you earlier, like, you look at your phone and you're like, oh my God, the world is fucking on fire.
Yeah. And
if I go outside and talk to my neighbour, he's like, all right, mate, how you doing? Yeah, I'm just having a new patio there.
Yeah.
They do a barbecue in the car park, like, every now and then. Like, there's a matey over there who's like, watch his kids play football. He's like, yeah, I like to bring him down. Everyone's chatting, everyone's nice, everyone's like sound around you. It's just like the illusion of this, like, the world is weird. And it probably goes back to that sphere of influence.
Mm.
Like, actually, is it worth worrying about the things that are outside of your sphere of influence?
Not really.
No. Can't affect you. Even if there is a satanic paedophile sex cult.
That run the world.
Yeah. Like,
and lying about climate change and COVID and trying to control us and fucking kids and drinking blood and coming on owls.
Yeah. Is that... Yeah. Maybe that's just the way it is. We're just ruled by our evil vampire lizard overlords. It's not that bad, though, is it?
No, it's all right.
It could be worse.
Could be.
It could be worse.
That's pretty positive, mate. Fucking hell. Could be worse.